Oh,
Recording.
Everybody, how we doing? Spectre here, Breaking Spectre that don't know, do a little show of my own and also over on the Patriot Soapbox here tonight. And it is the 19th day of August on a Saturday here, and I've got kind of a interesting group of folks net here tonight to have a frank discussion on a few topics net that may be of interest to you that have been in the news here as of late. So tonight we've got, let's see, reading around the room here. We'll start off with Patriotsky. You might know him from his show over on the Soapbox from the Tavern, I think it is, right? Patriotsky, how you doing tonight?
doing well. If I could get myself unmuted, yeah, that's Patriotsky Tavern, and thank you for inviting me into this discussion.
Very good. Also, we got Southern Take, aka Soko, who plays in the background over on the Soapbox. How you doing tonight?
You know me, always good.
And also looking around the room here tonight, I see T.N. Homesteader, also in house here tonight over on the Soapbox, also doing shows pretty much all over the place here as of late. How you doing tonight?
Hey, you doing, Inspector Soko? Ski, how are you? I'm doing well tonight. It's a lovely evening in Eastern Tennessee, and I'm enjoying joining you guys for a rousing discussion.
Rousing to say the least. And bringing up the rear tonight, of course, you guys know him from over in the Soapbox, the Mega Mullet Show, none other than Sleepwalker. How we doing tonight?
Doing great, Break Inspector. How are you?
We're doing fantastic. Glad to have you aboard.
Awesome,
So
awesome.
tonight, go ahead. All right, so tonight, as we have mentioned at the onset here, we have got a few things lined up to discuss here tonight. In the last couple of weeks, there's been plenty of stuff in the news about what is playing out down in Maui with the fires and that took place down there. And that's probably going to be what we'll start off with here tonight. And of course, we got a couple other subjects in that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But I think for now, that's what we'll start off with. And so without further ado, we're going to open up the floor tonight and have a frank discussion, let you guys take a peek at some of our thoughts, some of the things that we're seeing around the old webosphere, and entertain a few things here tonight. So without further ado, anybody who wants to jump in and kind of kick things off, the show floor is yours.
Okay, well, I'm going to show two videos that I think kind of highlight both sides of this subject, right? Because I had this, we spoke a little bit before we started, and I can see both sides. I can understand the people that know a lot of firefighters and understand it was a dry spell and see how a fire can spread. The other side, I also know what happened in Paradise, California, and the fishy stuff that went on there, and how somehow it manages to burn down a building and the yard's still green, that kind of weird stuff. So I'm going to play this clip that I saw that kind of like, to me, put in perspective the one side about what's happening in Maui. Okay, so we're going to watch this really quick, see what y'all think.
Yeah, we're done. Be careful right here.
What people don't realize is that Maui was in a D1, D2 severe drought for the season, and the risk for large fire potential was higher there than it was in California for this month and last month and in September as well. The winds were coming from the northeast, and they were very strong winds. They were descending, going up and over the mountain range and descending what we call the lee side. And when that happens, you get acceleration near the surface. When you get these structures burning in a high wind, they're creating embers that ignite the next structure, which ignites the next structure. And so it happens really quickly.
We have this additional issue, which is that our island archipelago has been invaded by fire-prone grasses from all over the world. And the problem is so big. I mean, over 1 million acres, and that's big for a small island. It's 26% of our state.
These conditions all lined up with kind of a classic fire weather situation. It just so happened that there was ignition during the high wind event, allowing a very fast spreading fire to burn into the community towards the coast.
Okay, so then we have that, right? And I'll show you this one little other thing. You know, you can't really argue the other side without. I found this what was it, the other day? And this is more along the lines of other rumors that I've heard that people have talked about where they're trying to go up. Survivors say that developers want to buy land where their homes once stood. And it goes on to talk about how these people lost everything and they already have people showing up wanting to buy their property. So that kind of goes into the whole like BlackRock and scooping up all the, homes so they can rent them out or that kind of scenario. So my question is, what do you guys think? Where do you line up? Why do you feel that way? What is your position on Maui?
Well, if I may, I'll start it off because, when I saw the picture of the banyan tree burned, not destroyed, but burned, damaged, it reminded me of that, the time I spent in Lahaina. And I have photos of being under that tree. So that was pretty kind of hit home, so to speak, even though it's not my home. I'll have to say that from a personal opinion as to how the fires manifested themselves, whether it was a nefarious activity or a nature activity, it's almost like, okay, that can be speculated upon on infinitum. It's what's happening now and what's going to happen to the land and to the people there. And that's where, there's the aspect of people thinking that, all right, it was done so they can capitalize on it, or basically to steal the land, so to speak, right? Buy the fucking dip, right, Spectre? That kind of concept versus the way I look at it is saying that they're like sharks, they're capitalizing on the dying whale and utilizing the scenario to be able to scoop up land and or buying the dip, which is the concept of buying stock when it's down at the bottom price. You either sell it to buy lower, even if you own it, you sell it and then you wait for the price to go down and you buy again, and you basically end up with the stock and you made money on it on top of that. And I can see that happening now, particularly on high demand, long standing, multi-generational home sites that now are effectively, cinder and dirt, and how people would take advantage of that. And so the question is, I'm not saying that isn't happening. The question is whether it was done to make it happen or it's being capitalized upon. It's almost a moot point. It's what's happening to those people now and how is it going to be addressed, because the federal government ain't doing shit. It's Biden's going to go out there. I think he was goaded into going out there, but he's going to go out there with a boatload of hope, according to the FEMA director. And now I'm hearing, $700 per household when we just got through sending 100-something billion over to Ukraine, right? And this is in our own backyard. So not to digress into that, that's my point. So basically, at this point in time, is being aware, and I don't know what we can do out of it from the lower 48, what we can do from the mainland to help the people in Hawaii either fend off the sharks or rebuild from their own bootstraps, so to speak.
Yeah, I would go ahead.
I was going to say I have a problem with the area of preparedness or lack thereof. You had the whole issue of this guy Kaleo Manuel, who was a deputy in the water department or whatever they call that area of their local government. Took him, for whatever reason, something like 5 hours to approve to be able to divert to reservoirs and other alternative water supplies to fight the blaze. And just the failure there could have saved Lord knows how many structures, how many lives potentially. And then there has been reports of the roads, the escape routes from West Maui to more safe areas of the island had been blocked and people were not allowed to leave. So that's an area that I'm going to be looking at a little bit, obviously more closely, and finding out exactly what the heck was going on with that. Those are two things that could have resulted in a lot much less drastic loss of property and lives.
I would agree. I think if we can figure out how to get Abram tanks to Ukraine, we can figure out how to get water to Hawaii. But okay, so anything else with sleep? What do you think?
So I was going to say, though, as we're talking about this, though, you have Western Canada on fire right now as well. To me, I mean, when you look at these fires, I mean, there seems to be like an issue lately with fires, right? Just like we had with train derailments. I mean, to me, I think there's something a little bit more nefarious going on. I tend to lean more that way, only because of I mean, we had orange skies in New York City a few weeks ago from Canada wildfires. I mean, I don't know.
Are you going a little tinfoil hat there, Sleepwalker? You going all conspiracy theorist on us
No, I'm
already?
not going all conspiracy theorist, but I think it
No.
has to. No, but I think it has to. I think it has to tie in with their whole climate change agenda, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. So it's another narrative that's trying to be built up, but in the meantime, there are people that are,
Well,
I
the-
think it's understandable to want to lean to conspiracy theories way, considering we understand all of us in this room what our government can do intentionally to a country just for their own agenda. So, like, I totally understand. Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, I was gonna say the reason I say that and lean on the conspiracy side of things is because there's probably about two schools of thought right now. And I think last Saturday when we played Lionel Nation, I think he hit it pretty well right on the head that everybody immediately wants to jump to the conspiracy side and it's direct energy weapons and this, that, and the other based on everything that we uncovered through the Paradise Fires and everything else. And that's fine. I have no problem with entertaining that thought, that idea, and chasing wherever that may go, down whatever rabbit hole it's got to go in order to try and prove that out. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is, and this has really convinced me over the last several days, a couple articles in that have come out that have explicitly pointed to government ineptitude. Both the Mises Institute as well as Real Clear Wire came out with a couple articles espousing as much that the government through and through, whether it be the electric company having a total monopoly on the island, there's no competition, which means there's also no incentive to do anything above and beyond what they already do to maintain the lines. You've also got the government that owns the land where all the grasses and that were shown, and the Guardian piece and that we just showed at the very beginning here. So there is no land management whatsoever. And at the same time, you look at the response in that. The sirens not going off, the water not flowing out of the various hydrants, and various other aspects of ineptitude that have played out since. So there's that argument to be made as well. And then on top of that,
Can I just interject something there?
sure.
So all that ineptitude, what does that make you believe? I mean, it's almost like the perfect setup, really.
Yeah, but there's an adage that says that incompetence may look like intentional. When you have a degree of incompetence, not ruling it out, but to Spector's point, it's an aspect of when you have I mean, if changing the subject here, look at LA and the homeless scenario and the traffic scenario and the people scenario and all of that kind of stuff, and the government being so incompetent at dealing with the problem. You can have that kind of scenario and then it ends up looking like a nefarious activity. Like it's done from intentional because you have a mounting series of incompetent behavior that looks like, well, this must have been done on purpose because nobody's that dumb, nobody's that incapable, and that's an easy pit. That's an easy pit to fall into.
Well, I'm
Looking
gonna
at
give
it, looking
Well-
at it as intentional, so to speak, right? That's what I mean. And
Well-
sorry,
well-
Spectre, if I jumped in and.
Well, I would say that ineptitude is intentional.
Well, this is my take on it because I'm telling you, I weighed both sides. You could have convinced me this was a natural wildfire by that Guardian thing, and knowing what I know about fires and my cousins and being to them and seeing how they can, blow your mind. What convinced me something else is going on is the reaction to it. Okay, inept government, weren't prepared, didn't have enough, whatever. But watching our government, it seemed like intentionally trying to block these people from getting relief is why I've leaned to sleepwalker side, because I'm like, okay, you can give me all the excuses in the world for, okay, it was a natural thing, the government was stupid, they didn't have enough supply, but watching them intentionally kind of like just cut them off from help, and nobody, and Biden's just waving as he, what about Maui? I don't know, what place is that? Like, it's like, what? And everybody kind of covering for it. We're still talking about Ukraine, and Maui's a second thought. That's part of our 50 states. So anyway, I'm not going to drag on, but that's why I've leaned more towards something else going.
Well,
Sorry,
to add, fuel to the fire, no pun intended. Some of the photographs of the way some of the trees burnt and the after effect, you don't normally see. I don't know whether you guys have seen some of the pictures and the videos that have come out from some of the trees and whatnot that have burned. It just doesn't look natural, which would lead one to believe or at least think that something that is not natural is going on there, which would logically lead you to, more into a conspiracy type theory consideration. It's just weird how some of those things burned. You just don't see that kind of stuff.
But the thing is that I struggle with, and I guess from stepping back, is if you're gonna attack Hawaii, Maui is not exactly the one you would go after. You go after
Unless.
Oahu or the Big Island. And why Hawaii, which is kind of like a closed environment type of thing. You look at it more, again, like the California aspect of it. And from a wildfire perspective, we've had Texas burning not too long ago. We had Australia burning not too long ago. We had Greece burning not too long ago, right? Within the last few years type of thing. And so it's an aspect that I think the capitalizing it for the narrative of climate change most definitely is being used for that. Whether it was done for that purpose, or even for the purpose of acquiring the land at pennies on the dollar, so to speak. Again, I say, why Maui?
Well, I guess to give you maybe a short answer to that is that the documents already exist, the meetings have already taken place, etc., that lead to none other than the World Economic Forum and smart cities.
Yeah, but still, Hawaii, Maui, it's like it's not.
It's a trial balloon.
Yeah.
Can I interject something here? Because I have like these crazy thoughts. You guys don't know me. I don't think like out there sometimes. But my whole thing is with the amount of fires that we witnessed in like recent history, right? And I'm not talking only about here in the States, but up in Canada as well. What if there's something else behind those fires? What if those fires are serving another purpose?
There are. And this is probably the thing that people are not paying attention to, because if you listen to the Mockingbird media, what are they putting out there? They want you to believe that it's all climate change 24/7. Since we finished up June, the narrative was LGBTQ trans stuff. Then all of a sudden shift. Oh, we got fires going. We got climate change. That's the flavor of the month they got to pump you full of fear with. Now, in the
Chameleon
backdrop of all that,
dialectic.
Yeah, in the backdrop of all that, on the other hand, we do have what are called natural occurring phenomena like La Nina, which we just came out of a period of about 3 years or so, just finished up here, and we're now moving into what is called El Nina. And it's a pattern where, in certain areas of the world, this largely floating about the equator, but it's going to cause some dynamic changes and shifts on the weather patterns and that we see across our various countries, and one of which being places like Hawaii that they mentioned in that Guardian piece was under drought. There are places in the Southwest that are under drought. There's places all across the West into the Midwest that are under drought. And of course, we're going to see higher temperatures, things like that across Texas. Of course, mind you, this is summertime. We do expect high temperatures. We've been there before. It's nothing new. Doesn't play into the narrative and all this, that, and the other. But we are going to see, probably starting this year into the next couple years, the effects of this El Nino pattern. Or El Nino, I should say. La Nina,
Yeah.
El Nino.
La Niña, El Niño, right.
Okay, so rolling up and finishing up Maui. Does anybody else kind of like have their final say so? We've got, and I will play a short clip to get us on to the next topic, so I can finish with my conspiracy theories on Maui. Does anybody else got anything else for go on?
Well, I guess one thing that should become readily apparent to folks as they watch this play out. We've mentioned the government ineptitude, the incompetence from the onset, or perhaps even negligence at the onset. We were watching it play out on the day of, not sounding the sirens, the low water pressure, the traffic cop stopping people, misdirection, you name it. Now, mind you, there could be things that could be exploited and things of that nature, but now on the back end of that, the recovery side, we're watching folks stream out of Maui saying, where are you guys? Why do we not have internet yet? Where is FEMA? Where is this? Why are we not getting water? And why are we being denied when supplies get here? Things of that nature coming in. Why are we being denied by government agencies? What should become readily apparent to folks, and I've been saying this for at least the last week now, Ronald Reagan's famous 9 words, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, should be what scares the hell out of everybody. And
Reminds
frankly,
you of Puerto Rico, doesn't it?
yes. And of course, we the people will do a far better job. Get the government the hell out of the way and let's do our stuff.
About the only thing I would see the government being involved with at this point is being able to ship supplies like crazy over to Hawaii, because it is a closed environment. Now, granted, you got Oahu and Hawaii and the island, the big island, Hawaii, being able to support Maui pretty well, in my opinion. But yeah, I can see shipping going other and focusing from that perspective. But I agree with you 100%. Once the supplies hit the dock, get out of the way.
Okay, and about the government and anyway, here I want to play this. I want y'all to listen to this and finish this kind of topic out. But I thought this is interesting. If you've not seen this podcast, you should watch it.
Held a key that opened every single door in the facility. I had complete access to every compartment they manufactured.
What are you blowing the whistle on?
That there are technologies at the South Pole Station that people can't even consider that exist on this planet. Directed energy weapon systems is something that people need to get into their vocabulary fast. The Ice Cube neutrino detector is not simply a passive listening device as presented for the science that they're claiming it to do. It also has the capacity to transmit. There are embedded in the ice what are called digital optical modules, DOMs. They're about the size of a basketball. The array embedded in the ice is 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. It is the world's largest telescope. And now, because we have proven that it can transmit, it's the world's largest directed energy weapons system. It is responsible for the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. I physically held a key that opened every single door in the facility. I had complete access to every compartment they made.
So there you go. I have to finish with that. If you've not seen it, you should watch it. It's pretty interesting. That guy, and he has pictures of him all over Antarctica, being down there.
So I'm gonna get so are we? I guess we're getting into weather modification, or
What? Say that again.
are we getting into weather modification now as well? And
No,
The
I just thought,
conspiracy side.
yeah, that's why I said I'm gonna do. You know what I mean? Why I
It's
can
a good
see
lead
all
in.
sides. People in this room will tell you. I've been doing this long enough to where like, so I think sometimes people do go off the deep end and want to see conspiracy and everything. And if you don't agree with something that they said, then all of a sudden you're a bad person. And on the right, people on the right, we all know this. So, like to me, I understand the thought that it was dry and that things can happen. But I also understand, like I said earlier, what this country has. I believe the weapon, what weapon we have. All of us in this room, I know all of you would agree. Of course, we don't know everything our own government has. God only knows what all it can do. And you do get a whistleblower every once in a while that, like this guy, that hey, listen, you think you have no clue. And I believe, honestly, what I've seen, I tend to believe.
The only objection that I had to what he said was the Christchurch earthquake, because it didn't occur in Christchurch. Maybe he was just using that as a term to
We talks about Haiti too. You should go watch it. You should
yeah,
watch.
but I mean,
You
but it
probably
didn't
won't watch
occur
it.
in, I know, but it didn't occur in Christchurch. That's my point. And maybe he was using it as a focal point for people to think, but the earthquake didn't occur in Christchurch. It occurred at 26 miles off the coast of Raoul Island.
Well, I think he referenced it because that's what something people they've heard before. They know where that is.
Yeah,
Instead of like
which
saying, like
basically,
like
which
we say we live in Tennessee. I don't say I live in Manchester. You know what I mean?
no, but I wouldn't have said Christchurch. I would have said New Zealand,
Yeah, true. True. I see what you're
right?
saying.
You would have said
Go
Tennessee,
watch it. Yeah.
right? Not necessarily, you know, Knoxville, Chattanooga, or Nashville, that kind of concept, right? I'm just using the three big cities, but I'm saying that's what struck me odd as to what he said, because it was almost like, okay, using something that people can focus on, rather than saying that, because I remember Spectre and I were very keen on what happened at the earthquake
Yeah.
at Rhode Island. Very keen on
It was very interesting.
very interesting. The first set of numbers and the revision numbers and all that kind of stuff, right? Remember
The USGS
Spectre?
numbers,
Yeah, exactly. Now that does that negate what he said as the potential of the let's say the devices and the technology that they have? No, I just found it kind of odd that he would use that as a means to get people's attention.
Well,
Patriotski.
now
Yes.
I,
Well, I think Christchurch, I mean, wasn't that where the most damage took place? That's probably why he referenced the Christchurch.
It very well could be. I can't remember that far back,
No, I
all the
don't think there
damage.
wasn't. No, there wasn't damage at Christchurch from the earthquake. No. No, it was. If you look at it, it was pretty. The earthquake was, of course, earthquakes don't matter, but it was pretty far away from Christchurch. Now, what happened thereafter Christchurch is different. That was the so-called Muslim killing madman, right?
Right. Yep.
But the New Zealand right winger, I guess, is what that was being pitched at. But that was different. So, anyways, that's just my take.
So I guess to entertain the woo side of this, if you will, if you want to call it the conspiracy side, I kind of maybe threw this out there the other day when I spoke about this. If there was a super team of folks I would really love to pull together just to kind of triangulate a couple things based on their levels of expertise, I'd probably put somebody like Monkey Works, who chases planes, around the time frame of said fires and that down there, just to see what sort of call signs net he saw, and if any of those potentially equated to any planes that may just happen to have directed energy weapon type equipment on board. I'd probably want to look at somebody like Dane Wigginton out of Geoengineering Watch to see what sort of trails net may have been sprayed in the days leading up to or around, just out of curiosity. And I'd probably pull in somebody like Dutch Sense in that, who did a phenomenal job in that back around the time of Paradise, pinpointing the start of these fires, just as they start, just to kind of triangulate a few guys in their various levels of expertise and put them together and see what comes out of it.
Yep, that would be the most sensible, I think, way to approach it. Kind of getting a scientific roundtable, right?
I guess maybe one other that I'm not sure if anybody has any expertise on would be to actually see what is going on with the various Doppler stations now. I happened to catch a funky anomaly taking place here on Monday at the Medicine Hat / Schuler Doppler station up in Canada that had a real strange phenomena go on for about a period of 8 hours. And it kind of reminded me of a couple other areas in that where we saw perhaps some similar stuff, but talked about that a little bit yesterday. I talked about it on Monday, what it kind of reminded me of, but we don't have a real good mechanism to try and pinpoint those because they're real arbitrary. You don't know when they may pop up. You don't have a way to find these necessarily on a regular basis or a continued basis. So the other thing that I got to thinking about was just prior to that, months before, there was articles that come out that says Hawaii and perhaps around Maui was seeing these lasers net come out of the sky, and they immediately thought China in the months leading up to. Well, entertain this thought here, and I just covered this article the other day, not well known and not talked about on the news. Yes, we hear that China has got their woes and things going on economically, but little do people know that they just got rocked by a major typhoon here within the last couple weeks, to the point that Beijing opened up the floodgates downstream of them to save Beijing from all the floodwaters, and it wiped out all sorts of towns and farmland. There's tens and tens and tens of thousands of folks. We have no idea if they lived or died. And
didn't they do that last year as well, or 2 years ago? I somehow
Yeah.
remember them doing that.
Three Gorges.
Yeah, just south of Three Gorges, but and Three Gorges, so opening it up because of the risk to the collapse, right?
Well, you're
So-
right,
Yeah.
Spectre.
No, I'm not saying that they're related, Spectre. It's just
Yeah.
just saying that that's
But there's a weather warfare element to this that we could be going back and forth. And I say this quite often, that currency wars lead to trade wars.
yeah,
Trade wars eventually lead to shooting wars,
kinetic wars. Yeah.
kinetic wars. So we're not necessarily at the shooting war stage, but we can definitely tell where this is headed. We know that we're talking fifth generational type warfare type stuff here, where potentially these erotic weapons may be introduced in that space, and there could be some tit for tat going back and forth.
Yeah. The other thing that struck me about the guy that Soko, that little clip that you played, if this was, and this is just me thinking in this fashion, if this was so super top secret type of stuff, why is this guy talking about it and he ain't 6 feet under?
Precisely.
That kind
The
of
same
stuff.
reason why I don't. Well, I think that I don't really care for Stephen Greer because he's been saying the same thing for 30 years.
Yeah,
I've got classified information and all this other stuff or whatever. I say take from it what you will, because I also believe there's people out there like Neil Kane, who I believe his story about how he was an FBI whistleblower and what the FBI did to him to ruin his family, and he's still alive. So I believe they're out there. I believe people out there that can try to tell the truth. And I mean, look at Tucker Carlson. Well, you can think
Yeah.
whatever you want to think about Tucker Carlson, but that man, as much as he's come out and talked about Kennedy's assassination and all the other stuff that
Yeah, but we're not
divided.
talking about earth-shattering technology.
Do what? I'm sorry.
When you're talking about Tucker and talking about JFK, those are political and human political plots and stuff like that. What he's talking about is earth devastating weaponry.
Yeah,
If
but
that
you can argue that, but I mean, Tucker went on saying that the CIA was involved with assassinating one of our presidents. I think that's pretty whistleblowing information too. I'm sure everybody in this room would think that we all thought that and understood that. But you got to imagine he took that message out in the middle of Fox News on the #1 show on television. You know what I mean? He didn't just just retire. You know, they fired his ass because he was talking too much to me. And I mean, and I think the reason why that man can stay alive is if you listen enough to his show or watch like his extended thing, like there's people like in the intelligence agency that really like him, that have befriended him over the years because he spent his whole life in DC. I do believe there's good people on the inside in serious positions that could look out for certain people that they have a liking for. Just as I believe that, the Vince Foster can somehow get aquarium tube around the back of his neck. Whatever happened to that guy that did not make any sense? You know what I mean? Just to your same argument about like Maui, it could have been natural. It could have been the government. Please, there's a market to be made either way. I do believe somebody could survive. I'm not saying it's easy, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just, when it comes to this level of information that is this volatile and this secret, and it involves weaponry, this guy's still walking around. Doesn't make sense to me.
And here's another point to consider too, is that we've kind of been in this spot before too, in terms of warning shots, shot across the bow, whatever you want to call this, potentially or back and forth tit for tat. You might remember back in 2015, at the time Obama was still in office. There was some shenanigans playing out. There was a lot of capital flight out of China at the time. People were trying to find ways around some of the stuff going on in China at the time. And so a lot of properties and that were getting bought up in Seattle and Portland and all across Canada for the folks inside to have a safe haven for them to park their cash. Well, one of the things that China started doing was started manipulating their currency and that against the dollar, the peg, which is what they use. Well, back then, you might recall there were some pretty spectacular fireworks in that took place at a couple chemical plants in that within a series of days. And many folks in that speculated that the old rod from God type technology, which isn't anything really special, but we definitely let them knew that it existed at that time because they had some pretty damn spectacular light shows and burnings and that as a result of those chemical plants going up in a fire again within a series of days, just to kind of give a shot across the bow, if you will.
Sleep, is there anything you want to add to this? You've been quiet for a while. I know it's hard sometimes to elbow your way in here. We've been talking about weather.
No. I mean, I believe. I mean, see, I don't know. I'm just very. How do I say? I believe there are things that exist that have been hidden from us. I think that the science that we know has probably been controlled as well. The whole thought process, everything that we know, everything that we've been taught, everything is. I think there is a possibility. I think they can control the weather. I think there probably is stuff in Antarctica. It's kind of crazy how nobody can go to Antarctica. I mean, it's not the most suitable climate, but I don't know. I just have a different take on all of it. I'm more of a conspiracy theorist, if you want to call it that, but I just question a lot of things, and I think it is plausible. I really
I think
do.
it's amazing how all these countries can be at war and hate each other, but manage to get 50 of them to all sign the Antarctica Treaty, and nobody ever
Mhm.
talks about it. Just saying. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It's you know, I don't know. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of things revealed here pretty soon. I think it has to happen.
Okay, for one more question back at you. Do you think Antarctica guy could still be up walking around, or no? Do you think like Homestead?
At
He
this
done been out of
point,
hell.
at this point, I think there's like soft disclosures. I don't think. I mean, he's not the only one that's talking about that as well. I mean,
Yeah, but see, to Homesteader's point, I get his point too, because to me, we can get into this too of this whole UFO whistleblower stuff. It seems too contrived. To Homesteader's point about Antarctica, dude, I'll play off that and go that direction first and argue that side. Like to me, if our government didn't want us to know about it, then these people wouldn't allow the quote whistleblowers. And I think that at the end of the day, that if they get COVID kind of was a test run to see how everybody would react, get people locked in. If you're trying to get everybody shoved into a socialistic, communistic program, what better way to do it to them than act like some big old UFO has just arrived over our heads? You know what I mean? So the UFO thing, something about it is, come on now,
I'm curious to see what the take is in the room on UFOs. Though. I'm curious.
Done rolling out the red carpet. Come on, guys, take crosses back. What do you think about aliens? Area 51.
You done chunked a flashbang into the room there, Sleep.
we
Well,
went from weapons or weather weapons to now we're talking to little green men.
I look at it this way: is that is if there's the possibility of life outside the Earth is mathematically ridiculously impossible that there isn't. The sheer volume is just gives it the opportunity. Now, when you look at the aspect of the technology that would be required to come to Earth, it's so far beyond anything that we can think of. Because you're
Wormhole.
talking about expanses of distances that, I mean, here they are talking about the potential of going to Mars, right? Then I'm just talking about here, just from what we hear, 6 months to travel just to Mars, and that's nothing compared to
So I guess
having
you
to
don't
come in
believe
from
in
outside
Tesla
the solar
time
system.
travel.
What's that?
So I guess you don't buy into like Tesla and what he said about time travel.
Time travel and UFOs are two different things.
Well, you said if they were from another place, the amount of time that you would have to travel to get here.
The distance.
Yeah,
I'm not
but
talking
think about
about
how that
time. I'm talking
distance
about
measured in
distance.
light years. Yeah.
Wormholes.
Yeah, and well, even wormholes, but it's the aspect of I'm talking about the technology that would be required, and then the aspect of saying at that point they would be. I mean, we're talking about dues in Antarctica. Give me a break.
Yeah. Well, they just reestablished or came up with a new number. They're saying now that the universe is 26 billion years old. In 26 billion years, don't you think there can be some pretty heavy technology developed?
Yeah, and I'm not disputing the point. I'm just saying that it would be so far beyond us, right? Even to our imagination kind of thing.
What if it is us?
Well, then,
See, these conversations are amazing.
but I mean, then you're talking about a lot of theoretical stuff, right? The aspect of um, and this is where it gets really interesting because then you start thinking if it is us from, let's say, I'm presuming future, then you're into paradoxes. Then you have to explore paradoxes, and that gets really hairy. Because it's like the old aspect of going back and killing your grandfather when he was a baby. That's a paradox, right? So when the minute you start messing with the past, that creates all kinds of different scenarios and things.
Well, let me throw a curveball in the room. And again, it's Elon Musk, so you can think what you want to think. The man that's actually sending rockets into space and and form the technology to be able to re-land the Falcons to reuse the rockets, saving him God knows how many millions, has said that he has never seen any evidence for UFOs. That if they're out there, they're good at hiding.
Well,
Because he's never seen any evidence for them. And I think about somebody like that. Now, listen again. I know manipulation works and propaganda, and they want to try to get you to believe one thing while the message is actually something different. But he has nothing to gain and everything to lose by not saying, "Oh yeah, I've seen some stuff out there." He's trying to, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Him making that statement on top of like what he's tried to warn about in 2014 about AI technology and saying these people are letting the demon out of the box, and they're too worried about advancement. They're not thinking about the backlash. When he said that about UFOs, I was like, you think about it. If there was one person that would possibly know and have everything to gain to confirm it is saying no, then what do you take from that?
Was he actually saying no, or just saying he personally hasn't seen any evidence of it?
He hasn't seen it. He hasn't seen anything. I
Okay.
should clarify. You're correct.
Yeah.
Hasn't seen any.
Well, I mean, how do you explain the literally millions upon millions of people describing essentially very similar events, with regards to close encounters, for lack of a better term? How do you explain what's come out recently with the Tic Tac videos? With these pilots. I mean, what is that they've captured on their radar screens, moving, in ways that we believe is, or at least our technology says, physically impossible. You just don't stop on a dime. I mean, if you did, whoever's inside of these things, it would tear them apart. Exactly.
Inertia is a bitch.
Yeah.
That brings up a whole new topic, though. Imagine that our military has drones 30 or 40,000 feet above the ground, but can zone in Afghanistan to see whether or not somebody's carrying a gun, a knife, or a cell phone. But every damn picture or video we've ever seen come out of our Navy looks like it was recorded in 1982 by a VHS recorder stuck into a VCR with dust we had to blow off the top of it in order to play it. I mean, could you get more grainy? And that's you're trying to convince me that's what our Navy's got as evidence of UFOs?
But you've got to have those vehicles, those drones that are capturing those types of images. You've got to have them in position in order to do that.
You don't think they can capture it by satellite?
Well, they probably can, but
I'm sure
Well,
they could.
most of the stuff
You're-
that they've shown is camera footage from planes. They're not
Correct.
exactly high-tech
There was
cameras.
live drone action in Iraq and Afghanistan.
yeah,
There were
they-
live drone strikes that
Oh,
were being
absolutely.
remotely controlled by the military
yeah.
that
There-
were zooming in from 30, 40,000.
Yeah. But those are what I'm saying is that those things, that tech is designed to do that for surveillance. The ones that are on the planes that are capturing, they're just for capturing the aspects of what that plane is doing, not for surveillance. So
Have
if
you
you
looked
have
at
a
the technology
have
on
a-
like F-57, like the camera technology on those planes?
no, not if let's say this from a fighter plane. Let's put
Yeah.
it just as an aspect of it. There's no need to put in that high end of millions of dollars worth of camera to capture
Oh,
what
I
that
would
fighter
argue
plane is doing.
no. I would argue you're wrong. The radar on those planes, according with the camera
That's
technology.
different, but the radar is different. The radar is for defense and or for weaponry, for offensive or defensive.
Yeah, that's all
Camera-
laser. That's all laser.
Cameras on fighters, they're almost useless because by the time you see something on that camera, it's on top of you.
Hmm. Maybe I'm thinking of a different plane, but I was pretty sure that they also equipped them with the ability to see pretty far around them.
Well, I
and
think
not
they
just
have
the naked
imagery.
eye.
What,
They
And not
have
just the
different. They
radar.
have different imagery. I mean, probably deeper technology than they're just releasing a video to us. I mean,
Right.
shitty recording.
all of those
But I
planes,
guarantee you, yes, there's definitely satellite imagery, and there's probably radar imagery. And if they're even if they're visible to radar, they could not be. They could have stealth technology as well.
well, there are different aircraft. I mean, they all have a mission. They all have a capability. And there are aircraft out there, the P-8s, we talked about P-8s, the P-8 Poseidon, that are typically called a sub hunter. They're surveillance aircraft. You got the RC-135s, which is a modification of the old KC-135 tanker that is just laden with surveillance equipment, radar equipment. You got your doomsday planes, the 747s that look like Air Force One, but those things are bristling with all kinds of surveillance technology. But those fighter aircraft that are capturing these things, they don't have, there's not any room in a fighter aircraft to put that kind of stuff in.
Right.
If you've ever been in a cockpit of any of those fighters, F-15s, F-22s, F-35, I mean, all of those, it's like you're sitting in a box.
And they're mission
The
specific.
Tic Tac
That's the
come
whole
from a
point.
naval ship. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, they're mission specific. And the surveillance craft that Petryaska was referring to is designed for surveillance. Now, is there video that we haven't seen or surveillance type information that is available that we haven't seen from those type of aircraft that gives you a much more detailed view? Quite possibly, and more than likely, quite probably. But what I'm referring to is the encounters that they have depicted or have shown us are from aircraft that's not their mission.
How about these commercial airline pilots that have come out and, the ones that are brave? I mean, people don't talk about that stuff for fear of losing their jobs. But there's been a lot of commercial airline pilots that have come out with, hey, this is what I saw.
Okay, have you guys seen this one? I'll just show you this as an example of what I'm talking about. This is me bouncing around the internet watching tons of different kind of content. But have you seen this one of the airplane that disappears with 3 orbs flying around it?
green blue
It is
thermal
so.
footage, which is first off a little bit odd, usually for thermal or you know. So you
Here,
can see
so
that the
there's the
plane is
jet.
flying. This is actually captured from what these people believe to be a drone, an MHQ-1 drone. Of course, you can see the plane is flying over there. And this is where it gets wild, ladies and gentlemen. So as the plane is flying, you start to see these orbiting dots. And of course, then there becomes 2 orbiting dots, 3 orbiting dots. And then, of course, the plane at one point will disappear from this. So immediately, this is a bit disconcerting, okay? You can even see the trails that these dots create. Again, if this is CG footage, it's very interesting CG footage. Now, of course, very close to the plane, you can see thermals on the fuselage. You can see more of these dots floating around, 3 dots again in specific. And of course, boom, disappears like that. A truly wild video footage, okay?
So what do you, so I told you I like to kind of argue both sides. I like those stuff out there and see what sticks. Have you seen that one?
Tian, what did I tell you about not long ago that I saw a plane flying overhead and I'm watching it, physically watching it, and all of a sudden, no cloud cover, mind you, and the damn thing just disappeared.
Right.
I want to say that Coach Clay or somebody just played that, not that video, but a very similar one. And that one had to do with MH370 that disappeared after Malaysia flight. That was that flight.
That flight right there that I just showed you was 3 months
Yes.
after Malaysia, I believe, is what this video is about.
And that's-
Yeah, the silhouette looked like it was a 767 or 757.
Yeah,
something
this one was 3 months after the Malaysian, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when I watched the video.
Yeah, the one that he showed like raw footage, not the thermals like what you showed from a different angle, but showed the same 3 orbs disappearing. Of course, what was key about that particular plane was the Rothschild scientists just having come out of a forum, just happened to hold, or we're having a forum on a patent, and lo and behold, Rothschild is the lone one that now holds a patent at whatever that was at the time. But yeah, very interesting nonetheless.
You mean like there was, I think, another angle of this. This might be the one that you're referring to. I'll show you really quick.
I should get my time frame in right. The thermal video was released after this one. So again, May 9th satellite video, the airliner and UFO posted May 19th, 2014. So again, 2 months after March. Actually, I should get my time frame in right. The thermal video was released after this one. So again, May 9th posted 2, but this is as far back as it's come out. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there was also posting on Vimeo by Area Del Ran wrote that there is some clouds of a video to show possible that they're moving.
He's talking about the clouds
what
moving.
they've claimed
Sorry, I had
is
it. Thought I had it at
clouds
the
are
part where it
moving
shows it where it
realistically.
disappears.
Again, I would
it
love
shows
to
it that he
ask
found
through
it
the
on
VFX
4chan, but he shows where the plane disappears.
Satellite video, the airliner and UFO posted May 19th, 2000. My time frame
this
is
is
right.
it.
The
Let
thermal
me
video
find
was
it. I don't want
released.
to keep showing this on here, but I want to show you where it disappears.
Yeah, I believe that's the one that he showed.
Yeah, and this one in the other video shows that it disappears as well. Here we go. I found it. Sorry about that. I thought I had it queued to the spot where it shows that it disappeared.
Nobody can confirm the validity as of today. So to understand, we got to get some of the time frame right. It was a hoax, right?
Going,
So
dadgummit,
because
y'all.
the actual
Yeah, I'm
disappearance
not on
happened
air a
on the
lot.
8th of March, we all know this. This is objective fact. This would give
I
about
couldn't
72
show
days.
I just watched this video, and every time I cue to the spot, it's like, no, he's showing another still. Somebody on like 4chan or whatever broke this video down frame by frame, because there's so much CGI now that it's like, are you sure it's not fake? People don't want to be duped again. But anyway, somewhere in there, it shows like that video I just showed you, and it shows the video where the plane, it's a big white flash, and then it disappears.
Yeah, there's a lot of mystery around MH370 and that from the time it disappeared, and even, I forget what it was, 6 months, a year later, that it perhaps remanifested itself as a different flight number, and that flying out of the Netherlands, it had dead bodies on it, and then once that got scattered over Ukraine, all the passports mysteriously fell into a nice little convenient spot to be picked up. What's that sound an awful lot like?
No, I found it finally. Sorry, I'm going to get this out.
ladies and gentlemen.
There's
You
the
can see
plane.
that. And by the way,
This will
thank
show
you for
where
the
it just
context.
weirdly
YouTube has added that
disappears.
into the situation. The plane is flying and makes a little bit of a
And
turn.
then
And
here
you can
comes
see
the
one of the dots sort of coming towards this plane and
one
starting to
thing.
circle it. And of course, if we watch the previous footage, it all
Something
lines up with another dot, then a third dot, and then eventually, if we go down even further and further and further, it will eventually
bam,
just
like a white
disappear.
flash.
It's like, actually, if we go down even further and further and further, it will
Bam.
eventually
It's
just
just
disappear.
strange, right? Nothing.
That's a little Bermuda Triangle-ish, yes.
It makes you
Left-
wonder though, right?
Yeah, yeah. Look, Tennessee and Patriotsky got quiet. They're like, "Oh, we're on the UFO shit." I go, I'm gonna go make some coffee to dinner.
It's just a lot of oddities. I mean, that's the whole point. Is they're oddities, and then it comes into all kinds of different explanations, right?
I know, right?
Yeah. So
AI, scary or not?
right. I mean, the aspects of those orbs, like things flying around the airplane. But what I find interesting is that somebody's capturing thermal imagery of that airplane as it's making a turn maneuver.
That's what I tell you. See, you pick out the things that I question. I'm like, it's whatever. It just looks like it. I mean, it says it's a drone. So is it kind of just low atmosphere drone that's kind of circling around that security or something? And that's why it was, I don't know, caught that. I don't know.
But then
But I
it
get what you're saying because
focuses,
it banked the way that
right?
it did
It
was a little
focuses
weird.
on that airliner. It's kind of a, it's one of those that's like, okay, so why are you filming that airliner? Right? I mean, that's I mean, not you obviously, but I'm just saying, why was that airliner being filmed? And that
Yeah.
was
I was
kind of an
filming it.
interesting turn that thing made too, because
Wasn't it?
airliners
Yeah,
don't
that's
make
what.
that kind of a turn unless they're coming in for a landing or something. But that was a pretty tight turn for an airliner.
Yes, that's the thing that struck me was just the maneuver itself. But those drones. I mean, drones fly just like any other plane does. They have a predetermined route. The drone operator sitting in a building, Lord knows where, miles and miles and miles away from where this drone is. Unless the drone is there to specifically look at what we just saw, you have to move these things around. It's not like all of a sudden you say, "Oh, let's take a drone picture." You have to move the drone, and the same thing comes into play in places like in war zones in those places where you want to get, well, how many terrorists are coming in towards this building? Well, you've got, do we have an asset in the area? No, we got one. How far is it away? It's 10 minutes away. Well, you got to fly the drone to that area so they can capture that image, whether it be an optical image or an infrared thermal type image or whatever it may be. They just don't, it's got to be there for a reason.
And also that from a if we look at it from whatever device it was that was videoing that airplane, the angle was from down up, so it was looking up. Now that's a lot of sky to be looking for and finding an airplane.
Yeah, and those planes don't normally fly more than about 35, 36, 37,000 feet.
No, and even if
And
we're
it
looking
wasn't
at
that
if we're
high.
looking at it if we're looking at it from a drone point of view, like a surveillance type drone. But what I'm saying is since we don't know what the device was, what we can do is look at and saying, okay, first of all, it's a thermal image from below the plane.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that means that image, that camera was looking up no matter what. Whether it was ground based or air based, it was looking up because it was below the plane.
Another thing to consider too is spatially. We don't know where that footage was taking place, coming across the Indian Ocean.
Correct.
It very well could have been flying over Diego Garcia at the time, and who knows what sort of equipment they got on a military base there. Again, this dating back to 2014 timeframe when that thing, poof, disappeared.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
it certainly is an interesting video.
To say the least.
All right, then.
And I noticed that
aliened out. Huh?
no, I noticed Sleeper put out a link to the Christchurch earthquake. See, and that one's from 2011. I wasn't thinking
Right.
that far back. I was thinking of the one that occurred in New Zealand, and within the time frame. I think it was what 20 was it 2018, Spectre? Yeah, it was
2018 or
2018.
19,
Yeah,
somewhere in there. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he was talking about the 2011 because he's not. I think he came back from Antarctica like 2016 or 17 or something like that. Or I don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched that podcast, but
Yeah, Christchurch has definitely been in the news a few times over the
Yes.
years.
Right.
so any of y'all have anything y'all want to throw out there that you think would be interesting to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay, please.
Well, get ready. The Biden administration or the Biden regime, whichever you prefer, is getting ready to re-implement COVID masking mandates in airports, TSA, pilots, passengers, et cetera, probably as soon as mid-September. That was from a Gateway Pundit article that came out just in the past day or so.
This is going to be an interesting thing.
Well, here's a funny thing. From what we've already learned, and of course we were learning this as we went through the scamdemic, masks obviously don't work. The social distancing doesn't work. Nothing that they tried was protocol or any of it worked for the reasons and supposedly intended.
Yep.
Right.
So the problem that many of us are going to have is that nobody rules if nobody obeys.
Right.
And that's got to be the mindset of every single person. Do not obey, period.
What were we just talking about a night or two ago, Soko? About masks.
I know.
What would happen?
Like there's so many people in this country that don't even know what like even mask mouth is. The amount of like gum rot, tooth rot that people are experiencing because they were having to wear their mask all day long. The amount of CO2 or stuff that children masking a child, they already have come out and admitted about speech impediments and the loss of children, learning how to speak clearly by being masked. And they're like, oh, yeah, got to do this again because it makes perfect sense. Don't forget, you're breathing it through your nose, those big old massive holes that are but next to the shaft of your nose. But please strap that on because it's helping.
This is because of the BA.6 variant, right? That they're
Yes.
citing?
There you go.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
So do you believe that people will actually fall for this again at this point in time, knowing what we know?
Sadly,
mean-
some will.
I know,
Well,
that's
it's not going to be a case of falling for it because if he's doing it, I agree with you, and I'm not criticizing what you're saying. It's the aspect of what they're tackling. They're tackling their pilots. They're tackling the air flights, right?
Right.
So from that perspective, people are going to make the choice of, oh, it's only an inconvenience. I need to fly. And where it's tackling is business flyers, because they're the majority of the people that fly are business. So this is going to be a very interesting thing. But I'm wondering if there will be something to what Spectres is going as the non-compliance aspect of it. Imagine a whole plane coming in and people getting on the plane with the mask and then just refusing to wear it on the plane. What are they going to do? Land the plane?
Exactly.
Right? And then how long before the airlines start screaming, "You're killing us"?
You know what comes to mind is fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. Shame
Yeah,
on
no,
you.
I agree with that respect. I think that there will be a lot of people that will, I mean, me personally, I won't fly. The question is for those that need to fly, and again, I go back to business travel, right? And although that's kind of also it's kind of an interesting move that they're doing because business travel is also must be waning with the ability to do teleconferencing and telecommuting, if you will. But now there's still a lot of business travelers. So from that perspective, those are the ones that are going to be the most affected or the most compliant because they'll have no choice. That the lyrics to that song are superb. If you
Yes.
start from the very beginning,
Absolutely.
I'm going to be
I
honest.
actually did a meme about that with those lyrics.
Yep.
What I immediately think is this is part of their plan. because I think they're boiling the frog. I've watched enough people say this is my line in the sand, and they go, well, okay, I'm just going to step over it a little bit because it's an inconvenience, and then the line get moved, and then the more people will, whatever. And I'll just use this as an example. When Patriotski come in here and said that the Biden administration was just about to repass the mask mandate at airports, how many of us would have what people would have been outraged to hear that 4 years ago or 3.5 years ago? But then us sitting here today, we're just like, oh, well, not a shocker, that again. I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing what people will slowly accept more and more because they're just exhausted from the fight, or they don't think it's that bad because we know how bad it can be, etc. Does that make sense?
I would see this as a kamikaze mission if they were to try and push us again, because there's going to be a hell of a lot more resistance this go around based on what we've already learned.
Yeah. And I believe it's not accidental that they're tackling air travel.
Well, we'll see if you're all right. Unfortunately, I believe that people will do like they did 3 years ago. They'll just put it on because they need to get to Austin, or they'll put it on because they need to get to New York.
Yeah,
Or San
and
Francisco.
that's exactly my point, Soko, and I think that's exactly why they tackled the airline industry.
So
Yeah.
do you really think that people have that much respect for this administration at this point? Knowing that the guy
No.
is a freaking thief?
Yeah, but it's not that.
Treasonous. I know, I'm just saying.
Well,
Yeah, but it's not the people. At this point, they put the squeeze on the airlines,
Right.
right?
Right, but that's how they did.
But
But that's how they did the original COVID deal.
Well,
They
I
went through
understand.
corporations and businesses and shut you down, and it's I
right,
don't
so
know.
they put the squeeze on the airlines. The airlines are going to adhere because it's their asses if they don't, and then it comes down to the people, and that's where I think I agree with what Soko is saying, is that the decision will be, I either put this on and be inconvenienced for the time that I'm on this plane, and that's only because I need to fly and call it a day.
And it's supposed to happen in October sometime, they're saying? Late September, October?
Mid-September into October, yeah.
well, it's interesting that they would bring that up then, because I just come across an article the other day about the pilot's net. They just had another one die in cabin here. I forget what route he was taking and what flight it was on, but they cited some statistics about the pilot death rate, if you want to call it that, over the years. And if you look at it from prior to 2020, we're talking minimal stuff. We're talking 100, maybe 200 at the most, leading up to 2020. And then the line of demarcation from 2024 forward is we maybe had like 1,100, then we had 2,100. And as of today, whenever this data was taken, we're up north of 4,000.
Yep.
Yep. Could this be a distraction of what's possibly getting ready to happen with regard to on the Trump side of things?
Well, see, I'm glad you went there because I was going to ask about the timeline scenario to revolve.
Which timeline are we playing to?
Well, no, I'm just saying with the indictments and him saying I just need the fourth one, and here we have the fourth, and they pretty much put together like the dream team. Do you think that we're getting ready to see something here transpire? I mean, is it going to be pushed off? Is it going to be like, or what do we get? What's going to happen? What do you guys think?
Well, just to get back to the airplane, let me make my point real quick on the airplane before we get off that. I see something a little bit different. And look at the time is at last of September, October, right before Thanksgiving, right before Christmas, the busiest time at the airports. They're going to force as many people into compliance as they can because they don't have time to bitch because they're trying to get home to their parents. And they got more and more people that they can watch them lose their civil liberties, lose their rights in order to put something on. Everybody now even more knows it's not helping them, but they're going to do it because the government, Big Daddy said so. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, they're gonna say, oh, this is different because that BA-286 is really, really bad stuff. Right?
Hype, smoke, fear.
Yeah, exactly. It's really bad stuff that the Max still can't stop.
Exactly.
Yes.
This is.
But the problem is,
it could very well be. I don't care if it's a radioactive particle. The mask can't stop it.
Bingo.
100%.
Never has, never will.
Putting a chain link
problem
fence
is
around your face.
the problem is you're still going to have people buy that though, because
Yes, that's true.
look at what has played out with all the Trump indictments. Every single time, and somebody put together a great meme of this over on True Social, wherever you pick it up. I'm sure it's all across most social media outlets. The timeline. Every single time that Comer or Jordan or somebody has kicked something bad about them, what happened the very next day? Oh, time to ding up an indictment. The next time, same thing. The next time, same thing. And so there's people who still to this day, if you're still watching Mockingbird, mainstream media, the ABCs, NBCs, CBSs, Clown News, reading the Washington Compost, New York Times, whatever, still have no idea all this crap is playing out in the backdrop with Hunter Biden and Joe at this point.
You mean
Yep.
Pedo Pete?
Pedo Pete, yeah, his alias.
Yeah. Hava made a pretty good video after I think it was was it the Atlanta indictment? I can't remember, but she did one where she basically did that exact outline the day after scenario, right? This happened, they did this. This happened, they did this. It's kind of exactly what you're saying, Spectre.
Who did that video? Hava?
Yeah, Hava did.
That's my new girl. My new crush.
Yeah. Somebody did a sticker. Somebody did a sticker on Foxhole for that. But yeah, it is. You're right, Spectre. It's kind of hilarious. But there's a lot of people that don't see it because they're still stuck on the stupid glass.
So I guess to Sleepwalker, your point when you say timeline, there's a lot of timelines in that at play here. Number one, you got the 4-year cycle, which we may or may not have 2024 election, selection, whatever you want to call it. You've got potentially, based on what you guys discussed with somebody like Derek the other day, this operation that took place that was launched behind the scenes, a continuation of government type time frame, whatever that is, for this operation to continue. I watch it from a financial timeline on the stuff that I do. So I guess to your point, when you say timeline, I guess maybe expound on that and
Well,
what do you mean?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's to me, just watching everything that, we've been, I don't know, when did we start this? Like 7 years ago when the channel came together? It's almost 7 years, right? Or six and a half.
End of January 2018.
Okay, so it's a while, right?
Yeah.
That we've been watching this. And all of these timelines that from the very beginning are and all these people that are involved in these timelines, or I should say from the start, are all center stage now again. Right? And to me, I think all of these timelines have to happen. There has to be, and I think Patriotsky, you alluded to this a while ago, like there's a convergence, right? Now, do they all come together, or is there one thing that sets them all off in a sense? Because we know that they all have to be, for lack of a better word, cleansed, right? I mean, there's criminality everywhere. It's deep. It's deep. The financial system is going to be redone. I mean, our political system needs to be redone. I don't even see how we can have a 2024 election unless something changes with the way that we hold elections. I mean, so we're at this point where everything is kind of like, to me anyway, on like a pause, right? We've been like, how much more do we have to hear of Hunter Biden's laptop and Joe's involvement and SARs and money from Ukraine and China and Romania? And I mean, how many more, how do I say?
Oh, you caught that
Instances.
too, the recycling of Hunter Biden's laptop story for over 2 years.
Yeah,
Nothing's
I
ever
mean,
gonna be done about it. But make sure you keep it in the news to keep all the Republicans distracted about this horrible thing they should be mad at. Yeah, I get it.
so, and then we watch what goes on, and like, I mean, with the weaponization committee, I mean, they've done great work, but I mean, we have it. We've had it. we've been watching this thing from the very beginning, and it's all been there. It's all been open source as well, but it hasn't been mainstream. It hasn't been reported by Mockingbird Media. But I think we're at that point now. I mean, 18, 18 cohorts, RICO charges. Like, I don't know. Like, where are we at? This is like it's almost unbelievable.
Well, this
Well,
brings me to another point I want to ask you guys about really quickly. And if you understand what he just said, please by all means. But I'm going to say this so we can hopefully, like that. It brings me to China. Like if you listen to people that follow the geopolitical, like what's happening in China, they are going bankrupt. If you listen to certain people, and then if you listen to other pundits, it's almost like, oh no, they're about to beat us. Oh, they're about to be the superpower.
Yeah.
So it's
Their economic problems are worse than ours.
yeah. That's what I mean. That's
Have
what
a
I've
lot more
heard.
people than us to feed. Remember that.
Yep. Well,
Sorry, but Tennessee, I think you was wanting to say something before I started that. So if you wanted to finish something off from a while ago, please do. China to me is baffling to hear so many different positions about it. Are they poor? Are they going poor? Are they, are about to beat us as the world superpower? Which is it? You know what I
well,
mean?
they're an enigma in their own right because nobody knows what really is going on in China. They're all external observers.
That's
Uh,
true.
most of the geopolitical stuff within China, the reality is within a very tight circle. Now, what we could observe is what's going on that's happening from a nationwide point of view. Um, and honestly, they're not depicting a collapse. Now, Spectre may have a different perspective because of his more deeper involvement, but I'm telling you that there are aspects of involvement with, particularly with gold and the relationships with Russia and the Silk Road and expansion, et cetera, et cetera. They are definitely have an agenda and a movement. And from that perspective, whether it's to avert a collapse or because of the collapse, either way, they're making moves that are worldwide moves and they're long term moves. They've always been long term planners. So um, I don't know. The point that I was going to bring up was related to the election. And I look at it from the perspective that um, if the deep state had that control of the election, they wouldn't be pushing Trump like they are before the election. There's no need for it.
great point.
So to me, they don't have the control that they need. Now, does that prevent them from cheating? No, I'm not saying that. But to cheat to the level that it requires them to be able to have control of the election, then they wouldn't need to attack Trump the way they are. They just let it ride and beat him out, and then you can attack him afterwards, or you just let him fade into the sunset. So there's something else that Trump is representing, and there's something one that Trump is representing, two that they don't have a grip on, that they don't have a handle on. Sorry,
I
go ahead.
guess I guess to that point, for those that watched the Lindell forum and that over the last couple of days here, that sat and listened to the various states representatives get up there and kind of give a report card from 2018 to 2020 to 2022. Every single state, the reps in that got up there during that kind of gave a rundown, and then they also listed some of the positive things in that are going on. And to your point, yes, I wholeheartedly agree that if Trump is out of the way, they don't have to work so hard to cheat if and need at all. But the states are making moves. They recognize what happened in 2020. And a lot of these states are making great progress. I'll use New Mexico as an example of that, where they're filing all sorts of class action suits and things like that going on in their respective state to try and hone this thing in and get the data and going after the elected officials and that subverted some of the rules and things that we saw play out in 2020. So that aspect is going on. Now, I want to go back to your point on China that you brought up, Soko. From a financial standpoint, there's two schools of thoughts or two ways to look at this thing. you got to look at it in the standpoint of the existing system. Okay, so where everybody's under fiat currencies, central banks, Rothschild rule, all that good stuff. China, their problems began a couple years ago with Evergrande in terms of property. That's their big market. Evergrande started blowing up 2 years ago, just about 2 years ago, coming up September timeframe, we started getting wind of what's going on there. Today, after the lockdowns and the disruptions that they had to trade and everything else as a result of that, everything was supposed to be hunky-dory when the restrictions now were lifted. Everything was supposed to be on the up and up. That hasn't been the case. Property in that is still a big time problem. They don't have, the government has not stepped in to save the property side of things for the way it is blowing up, and it's way worse than what's being reported. They lie about their statistics much to the same degree that our Bureau of Labor Statistics and EIA and everybody else, all these three-letter agencies, do to our markets. So we have no idea what's really going on, other than things are bad. There's China Gardens, or whatever the bigger property market is, or property entity is. It's 4 times bigger than Evergrande that is blowing up right now. They've cut off reporting what the child, or not child, but kids 16 to 25 years old employment rate is. Well, why would they do that if things are so great? So there's that aspect going on. And so it's literally a race right now between the Fed on how bad things are here versus what is playing out in China. That's a timeline to look at. From the US's side, we got 7 months. Why do I say 7 months? If you think back to March, April timeframe, when we had Silicon Valley Bank and we had First Republic and various other banks, and that all blow up. What people fail to realize out of that deal is that the assets that they had was larger with just those 3 banks. Signature Bank, the other bank, was larger than what blew up back in 2007, 2008, what they called the Great Financial Crisis. Much larger. And supposedly we're supposed to believe everything is under control, and just like safe and effective for vaccines, everything is sound and resilient. That's the terms they use to kind of woo you in, right? So in 7 months' time, the Federal Reserve has been backstopping all of your various small and regional banks. They have to go to the window and that over at the Federal Reserve to shore up their balance sheets. Well, what happens in 7 months' times when the Fed cuts that off with the BTFP tool, and that they're all going there on a weekly basis? We're watching the numbers since March, up, 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 and up. We're like north of 107 billion at this point. Well, these banks aren't going to be able to recover the losses on all their bonds, which were good at the time when interest rates were low. Now that the Federal Reserve has been blowing things up, the interest rates net have come up, all those assets, what is termed mark to market, are going to blow up, because all the financial rules say I only have to look at it from the point at which I bought the bonds, and that's what goes on their balance sheets, not the losses as they are today, which are tanking hugely. That's why they're having to go to the Federal Reserve to backstop this stuff. So when that ends 7 months from now, what's going to happen to all these banks? Who are the big fish going to be eating up the little fish? Is JP Morgan going to get much bigger? Is Bank of America going to get much bigger? And so there's the old system. The old school has got to get blown up for the new stuff to come in. Now, it could go one of 2 ways. We can go the CBDC route, which we've been harpooning on. This is terrible for us because this is virtual enslavement, programmable dollars, digital dollars. They don't want you to have gold. They don't want you to have silver. They don't want you to go crypto, any of that stuff. But there's also the good side of that. A lot of folks are going gold and silver. Hence why we got the BRICS Summit coming up on August 22nd through 24th down in Durban, South Africa, where all the BRICS nations, plus a whole pile of other nations, want to join in on this. There's talk that they may start going to a gold-backed trade currency of some sort. It's not done deal. It's not turnkey, ready to go, day one, that we know of. And then at the same time, you look at what's playing out on the state side. A lot of states recognize gold and silver as a means and ways to settle your debts, if you will, for trade, goods, services, you name it. So there's that aspect. And so it's really kind of a crapshoot after 7 months' time, just following the financials as to which way this is going to go. They're going to try and push us, try and have this great crisis to try and force the people onto CBDCs and have control of you in their entirety. The question is will we resist enough, whether it be through what comes up in September here, if they try and restrict people's movements again with COVID part 2, climate lockdowns, whatever it is they're going to try and do, and try and force people's hands.
Are you saying that America and China are in a race to the bottom? And anybody that thinks the ruble is going to, because of what Putin's doing, they're saying it's the lowest it's been since, since the Ukraine invasion. The ruble is still in decline.
It is to some degree. Now, they just raised their interest rate net to help avert that here the other day. They're up north of 12%. And so all these sanctions net that they thought were going to, wipe out Russia didn't work. Why? Because even though the sanctions net were meant to wipe out the $300 billion of Federal Reserve or Russia's Federal Reserve banks notes that they had in dollars, basically backfired because they were able to avert that and sell off energy to all the various countries, whether it be Europe, whether it be to India, whether it be to China. Well, Europe cut their nose to spite their face through the Nord Stream pipeline blow up, and so that went out the window, which Trump was proven right. And so they've been selling to India and China left and right, which in turn gets sold right back to Europe at a higher cost. So they're idiots. But in the backdrop of all that, Russia and China over the years have been picking up tons and tons and tons of gold. We have no idea how much gold China actually has. We know they've got a pretty good corner on the market. They own mines, they own the ETFs, they own physical gold. We have no idea how much they have stockpiled. Same thing with Russia. We have a pretty good idea, but we don't really know. And they've also gone down the path here and started piloting their CBDC from old world system, if you will. But they also have been playing the other side to where they're going to have a gold-backed digital currency of some sort. So they're playing both sides of this. And the same is true of what's going on here. We do have options. We do not have to go the CBDC route. All you have to do is say, no, I do not consent. And you can tell your employer that. And it's awful damn tough for people to make products and do services if you say no and everybody else does the same thing. What do they got left? Nothing.
Yeah, look what happened with Bud Light. Look what happened with all these people when they tried to force the issue. The people stood up and said, no, we're not going to go there anymore.
Could I just add a little something there though? Didn't Michael Burry of like the Big Short fame just put like 1.6 billion against the market?
They did.
Okay. Yep. And then, I mean, don't like
He's banking on a crash before the end of the year.
Yep.
He's shorting the market is what he's doing.
Yep. 1.6.
And but Breaking's point, that's just kind of what we know, because I'll tell you, to Tennessee saying it's hard to get statistics, to Breaking saying, well, that's what I think about. I think about, the pipeline, right? You think about how much energy Russia itself supplies to all those European countries. Then you think about the fact that, America, we got over this, where there's a reason it's called the petrodollar. You look at Russia tried to position itself, saw what was coming, so it immediately teamed up with the two worst people that it could for us, are Iran and China, and then started immediately trying to make deals so it wouldn't go broke. So it is like if our elites don't get their acts together, then, not to mention that that's the only country that has more nuclear warheads than we do. It's like, what are they doing? It's like, keep poking him. Oh, we have no bioweapons in Ukraine. Oh, all of a sudden we have 14. Then, oops, it was 42. And what did Putin say the whole time? The only reason why he invaded, well, one of the reasons that he invaded the Donbass region after all those years of Ukraine bombing those people was because his intelligence told him that they were going to try and pull COVID in Ukraine like America did in Wuhan. And they were like, I don't know what he's talking about. We don't have any bio labs in Ukraine. Then all of a sudden we had several. Then it was dozens. So if you know, it's like you want to put Putin's credibility over our own administration. Well, that's not a crazy thought.
Well, there's an old adage that probably still will ring true today. He who has the gold makes the rules.
Rules, yeah.
Well, can I
Did
add,
y'all remember what happened with Libya? Do y'all remember when
100%
Libya, when Hillary
Gaddafi,
Clinton went over to Libya and they said they was loading that gold in the back of those planes? Those that couple from Texas that had went over there was like working with the locals and the tribes. It was like a submission place. They said they were trying to get out of there when the war broke, and they just watched the back of that plane just get loaded with like, I was like, wow. And then it was funny because the only embassy that would help them get out was the Russian embassy. The American one wouldn't help them. They were from Texas. And then you put two and two together, and you're like, what would they load in the back of that plane, and who was helping you get out? Like, you know what I mean? Who was selling our uranium to Russia? Oh, it was Hillary Clinton, but Trump's the Russian asset.
Yeah, you might also remember the article from years past when we saw the back end of an airplane fall out on the runway in Russia because it was loaded down with so much gold. There's
The
gold bars
bricks.
straight across the
Yeah, the bricks
runway.
coming out, the ingots coming out of the back. Yep.
So can I ask you guys a question?
Uh-huh.
Do you believe that there is some type of agreement amongst these nations to get rid of world banks and to change the whole system?
To go digital, yes.
Well, not necessarily to go digital, not necessarily to go digital, but to go to a gold-backed currency
Oh, you're
as
Are you
opposed to
talking-
fiat currencies.
Are you intimating
No.
Jasara and Nasara?
no from the banking system. No, I don't think there's an agreement there.
No, I would agree. I think at this
From-
point, most everything is leaning toward what the Bank of International Settlements has already put together and the white papers and that accompany it from all the various central banks around the world to go toward CBDCs. Now, there are national ones that are being set up to kind of warm us up, if you will. And heck, even here, United States side in July here, we just introduced Fed Now, which is seen as a kind of a precursor to that to speed up payments. So for those listening in that, you may look at your check or you may look at your bank account and see the ACH letters and that behind various transactions. Well, that's the old system. Now, the Fed Now system is supposed to speed that up to be more like what we already have in the free market. You got things like Zelle, you got various payment systems that you can do over your phone that are immediate transfers. The Fed is playing catch up in that regard, but it is seen as a precursor to a central bank digital currency. And you can track all that stuff over at the Atlantic Council's website. You can see the interactive map and track where each of the various countries are in their respective pilot programs or how far down the path they are. But ultimately, everything leads to the IMF's what's called the UWU, which is an international central bank digital currency. And that's going to be the overarching one that puts everybody on a world currency.
Yep. And you know what my fear on that front is fear in the sense of concern, I should say, better put, is how they'll incentivize people. There's two methods of incentivizing is by coercion, right? The aspect of forcing you to do it because you cannot perform a transaction unless. The other one is by incentivizing, and I'll just throw a number out there, a 3-for-1 ratio, right? You got $3, right? Or $1 is now $3 digitally. And that could be a big incentive for people. I mean, think about it. From 10 grand, let's say, to now becomes 30. And I'm just picking 3-to-1 as just an arbitrary number. They can make it whatever they want it to be. That's, went from 10 grand to 30 grand. How many people would jump at that?
Well, there's going to be a strong pull. And you don't have to look too much further than what has played out over the last 2 years of watching various food processing plants and that go up in smoke around this country, even worldwide. I'll throw that out there. How many have we watched go up in smoke? Same thing with trains falling off tracks left and right all across the country. Our infrastructure looks pretty terrible.
Yep. And supply and demand will kick in, and demand will then, it's an aspect of coercion in that respect. And I was looking at it from an incentivizing, because a lot of people will jump at the chance of getting free money, so to speak, right? So to me, the way to prepare is to diversify. It's about the best we can do, in my opinion. And maybe you have a different perspective, Spectre. But right now, I'm looking at it from a perspective of diversify, not only be prepared on the material stuff, but also from a financial perspective, diversify.
And
Not
before we
only
get off
metal.
the gold
Yeah.
topic, before you answer, I just want to say this, and I'm sorry to bust in here with like the simplest of thoughts, but like to me, sometimes I look at how Russia, it appears to have been stockpiling the gold, China as well, and sometimes I wonder if not they're sick of America's bullshit. Or America involves itself with all their elections and then cries foul, and says, "Oh, you're involved in ours." Or pushing other, countries around saying, "Oh, we're going to remove your duly elected official and we're going to put in a Valinsky," and watched just how corruption is overtaken where we live. And that, just kind of gotten sick of it. So you think you're the superpower because of your currency? Well, we'll just stockpile the stuff we actually know is worth something. And you
But
can
see,
float on the dollar bills.
yeah, I I understand what you're saying, Soko, but I think the focus is not just the U.S. It's the people that are doing it worldwide.
Oh yeah, I'm
It's
sorry. That's what I mean. Yeah, I'm sorry.
because the U.S. is the vehicle that they're doing it through in essence the enforcement or through the might, right? The post World War II might, and now other countries are catching up. Um, but it's an aspect of the whether we call it the central banking or the monetary system that's out there. That's what's doing it. It's the coercion that's occurring and using the political and or military might of the U.S. and then the financial might that goes with it. And that's why they're hurting so much. And in a way, they're flipping the script, loosely put it, at least in my opinion, is because they need to now get the U.S. out of the way, the Americans out of the way, not the U.S., the Americans out of the way.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. But definitely the diversification. I've been preaching preparedness for quite a while.
Oh, I feel you. You know me, purple all the way, homie.
Yep.
Well, and I guess to that end, folks, there is hope in that regard, and that there are states in that who have moved to put depositories on their lands, Texas, Tennessee, both. There are states who have looked to fill depositories with reserves, Texas, Tennessee, North Carolina is starting to pick up steam a little bit on that. There are over 44 states within the country here that at least recognize that there should be no taxes in exchanging your green pieces of paper for gold, silver bullion, what have you, more gaining steam left and right. So if you are one of those states that isn't aboard that, take a look at the legislation of the states that have passed it and send that off to your various legislators down in your state houses and get them moving on that. Now, aside from the gold and silver standpoint, there's only a couple banks that I'm aware of here in these United States. I think one's either in North or South Dakota, State Bank, and there's another one that just got formulated here. I believe it's over in Maine, up in the Northeast. And these are actually state chartered banks, which means they operate outside of the Federal Reserve System, which means they're also not part of SWIFT, meaning they can't be sanctioned. Well, why is that important? Well, think of what has happened over the last several years, even dating all the way back to Obama's term, where we had Operation Choke Point take place. Operation Choke Point, if you might recall, went after a lot of gun manufacturers, gun parts manufacturers. They don't like guns. They don't want you to have them. They don't want you to be able to build them, ghost guns, anything along the like that they cannot track. That's why you're seeing all the push for red flag laws and stuff and that all across the country. Pay attention to what's going on with your Second Amendment stuff, because that's a telltale sign. But back to my point with Maine, the reason that bank was started, two reasons. Sanctions. They don't want to be part of the system. They don't want to be part of the system where your credit card processors, perhaps, if they don't like something, they just release this code and that can be tracked by some nefarious groups to be able to track what your purchases are through your Visa, your MasterCard. Some states are coming against it. DeSantis is being one of them. But more importantly, the banks in that are state chartered cannot be sanctioned, meaning If you want to partner up with a state bank, they can't restrict them doing business with a gun manufacturer or any parts manufacturer, anything Second Amendment related. And also look at what the states have been doing by way of cannabis. All the various folks in that who have started up pot shops now all across the country. Well, there's federal regulations now that say that it's still illegal, but the states, using the 10th Amendment, have gone contrary-wise to that. And so the Fed could very easily step in and say, yeah, we're going to sanction that. We don't want you to be able to get that treatment any further. So the state bank would at least allow for the pot dispensaries and that around the country to be able to still do business and get funding that they need. So even going the state chartered bank is an avenue that every one of us in our respective states should be looking at.
What did you want to ask, Patriowski? You're going to have to say that word. I don't know what you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, there's a lot of talk out there, various circles. What is the consensus amongst us with regards to what is known as GESARA, the Global Economic, whatever that acronym means? Anyone familiar?
Look, I was like, don't everybody talk at once. Look, we ain't been able to keep this room is quiet. Come on now. I know
We're
what
gonna
it
leave it to
is.
breaking since
Oh,
he's
y'all.
like he's the
Well, I guess my gut feel is I'm aware of it, number one. Have I done a ton of research around it? No. Do I follow all the stuff and that it pretends to be and where people think this is going to lead to the promised land and XRP and all this, that, and the other? No. I do see backhandedly some of the stuff that takes place, but is it the saving grace? I don't think so. I'm just not sold on it, number one. I would tend to go more toward what is historically known, that has always been money throughout history, and that's gold and silver. Fiat currencies have always failed.
Yeah, and the reason I brought it up was because what's happening with BRICS definitely has some earmarks that look suspiciously like what could be what we're talking about, the GESARA, the global.
Yeah, but that's the concept of a jubilee as well, right?
Well, it's
that's part of it.
element.
Yes.
Yeah, but you can't. It's an aspect of debt forgiveness doesn't. That's the part where I struggle with the concept. That's part of it. Yeah, I understand that, but that's a major part of that everybody look towards, and that's where I struggle.
Well, but I wanted to ask a question though, because like you had talked about JP Morgan before. Do you really think that the existing banking system that we have is going to remain, knowing what we know about it, with derivatives and compound interest and all of this crazy stuff, these machinations?
If they're able to move forward with the CBDC, yes. Because that's all control. At that point, it's ultimate control.
Yeah, there's actually two parts to the CBDC that I'm sure many people, unless you've studied it, don't realize, is that there's the wholesale side of it, and then there's a retail side of it. The retail side pertains to you and I, how we transact, do business amongst each other with the various shops and that we go into to buy goods, services, and the like. The wholesale side is actually the interbank talking at the next higher level and how they handle the pluses and the minuses on their books.
And
that would be
happening.
That's already happening.
Yeah, it's already happening. The part that's not there is the overt, but there is the overt. You can't perform transactions at a wholesale like that. That product or that item or that entity, etc. It occurs, but not at a overt level yet. At least from what I understand.
Right. And to that point, social credit scores. I'll just throw this in, the ESG, the DEI nonsense and that's out there, all that stuff, pure communistic crap. The bank's already doing it. We saw it through Coots and Nat West, which is the parent of Coots, for Nigel Farage, who is a champion of Brexit. He fought against it. A couple people's heads rolled, and they're no longer there. However, JP Morgan, we have evidence of them doing it here as of just a few weeks ago, matter of fact. Same thing with Wells Fargo. They're going to continue to do that. They're going to make it very difficult for you to be able to transact digitally. You'll be depersonified. Well, dare I say, just be a Laura Loomer. You'll just won't exist in the digital realm or be able to do anything.
Right.
So JB Morgan's going to walk away unscathed with this whole Epstein Island scenario too, as well, and the victims and all that good stuff, even though they paid. I'm sure they're probably involved in a lot of money laundering as well.
That's
It's like I brought up yesterday. Imagine being someone that was prosecuted by the federal government, somebody that high profile as Ghislaine Maxwell, and yet being prosecuted, charged, committed of a crime, and have no victim, or have no people that she procured the children for. I don't know. Well, they've come out. A few victims have come out, but imagine that there's no one. She's procuring people for somebody, but that somebody is never revealed, never persecuted, never, like, nothing ever happened. Imagine that happening. Well, it did during her trial. So there's so much to be said about the Epsteins and the Maxwells of the world. I mean, we've watched it happen in our own politics. We've watched people commit crimes right in front of our eyes and never so much as get a slap on the wrist. But if it's an American citizen, apparently you can't even stand in your own yard and protect your front door at this point. So there's a lot of stuff happening that concerns me. And to your point earlier, Breaking, when you brought up Tennessee about our gold, the gold standard, like gold currency or whatever that we've passed here, I appreciate that. But I will also say, to push back a tiny bit, we also have a governor right now that's entertaining what some would consider like red flag laws, where your grandpa can no longer pass down a gun to the grandson because, I don't know, crime. Yet we have Mexican drug cartels and gang members. I think it's up to 124 in Memphis right now that they won't bother to go knock on the door and ask for their guns, and they're already breaking the laws on the books. But yeah, let's pass some more.
Yeah, that's why we need to be vigilant about Second Amendment related stuff too, because Tennessee is going to come front and center here real quick like, and that's part of the reason why we saw the, dare I say, false flag that we did here just a few months back to try and push red flag gun laws. And of course, you guys are, I believe, just like every other governing body in that here, the states net, as well as Congress, are all out on summer break. Your governor down there wants to pull together a special session, and your legislators are pushing back saying, well, we're not going to buy into that.
Right.
And they are desperately trying to push to make red flag gun laws part of this deal, to where they will confiscate your guns at all cost.
Oh,
Can I throw another monkey wrench in there?
Go ahead.
Because I think this is important. Because the other day, Patriowski in Tennessee, you guys had Johnson on, right? And he mentioned something about reconstitution.
Yep. Final step in COG.
Right. So can we touch upon that a little bit in the sense of, like, what changes if reconstitution occurs?
Well, as I recall, I asked him what it was going to look like, and I don't think he really knows. I don't think anybody really knows at this point.
Right.
I mean,
I
what do you
think
think,
the
Ian?
intent is to make it back to as close to local governance as possible, which was the original intent.
Right.
But how it actually manifests itself, it's I don't think anybody knows. I don't think he knows. Or
No, I understand, but do you think it's plausible? Do you think it's possible? Do you think it's like something that's like, I mean, I'm just,
it's possible, but in my opinion, it requires people that are willing to give up control. Now, if you remove those people through the process of the let's say, not necessarily military involvement, from a perspective of arms and removing them, physically removing them. But if you go through the process of attritioning, yeah, then it is possible to basically remove the grip of the federal government, and pass it down to the states. Now, at that point, then it's closer. That doesn't put us out of the woodwork because you can have corruption at the state level. But that's what the closer it gets to the people, the more control the people would have. But the grip of the federal government is where it needs to. I mean, the regulatory grip, the financial grip that they have, and that, let's face it, that a lot of the things that the states do is to be able to receive the federal dollars. And very few states are willing to say no.
Right, but I mean, if you look at what's going on right now, I mean, you got, I mean, just take a look at sanctuary cities. Look at their whole scenario, right? I mean, they're being devastated in a way.
Right.
They're victims of their own making now.
No, I understand. I understand that, but this is how people like see what could be, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is, what do we believe is actually taking place right now in this country? What do we actually believe, like this whole scenario that we played out and watched, and most of us came together with the Q drops, right? So like the whole Russia collusion, the soft coup, whatever they tried to do, where are we at now today? How do you guys see this whole scenario, knowing what we know? What do you think is actually taking place in the world, in the United States? What are we going to right now? What is going to be? What do you envision this leading to?
Well, those are multiple separate questions. But
No, I know, but I think they're all joined.
yeah, but you're asking for the
Right.
current state, end state, and what's going on, and as far as the end state, I don't know. What I see that is what's going on right now is an aspect of exposure.
Yeah.
The whole thing is exposure. It's to have the people, as many as will be made aware through various different channels, but that need to be the education of the populace. Now, does that mean everybody? No. There's still going to be a lot of stupid people out there.
Right.
But it's an aspect of reaching that critical mass of people that are aware of what's going on, and look at and the numbers reflect it in a way now. If you look at the poll numbers, for whatever the polls are worth, when you look at them across many different polling entities, you start seeing the outliers out there, and the general trend is away from the federal government. The general trend is away from the media. The ratings in the media are collapsing across the board.
True that.
So from that perspective, and people are becoming more aware, because here's where I'm going at. When you have 48% of Democrats being polled, believing that the federal government was involved with January 6th, was believing that there was election shenanigans in 2020, and that includes Democrats in large numbers, not the majority, but in large numbers.
But growing.
But then you have to look at what they're getting, what they're seeing on the glass, what they're seeing in the media. They're getting bombarded on a day-to-day basis with bullshit. So you figure, okay, so if these people are getting this daily dose of bullshit, where are these numbers coming from? Because they're the opposite of what they're being fed, which means they're not getting the info from those sources. And that's what I think what's going on right now is that period of time for exposure.
Yeah. This is what we popularly known as the Great Awakening.
100%. But and I think the reason why I said was, and I know you broke it down into three parts, and I think it's important to have a vision of where we want to see it lead to and what we want to see it lead to. Because I think without that vision, we're never going to get there.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, what we're going through right now is the American Revolution revisited. I mean, if you read the Declaration of Independence, does it not apply almost right down the line of what we're faced with today?
Yeah, you just have to change a couple of words
Right,
in there
exactly.
of the You know, that instead of the savages, call it
Yeah.
Antifa.
Yeah, we don't have a king. I mean, so, but but
Well, really?
what we, well, yeah. I mean, we do, but it's a domestic.
No, but
We
It's
have
not
a
across the army.
dictator, a dictator.
Yeah, exactly.
Wannabe dictator.
yeah, wannabe dictator, exactly. But no,
We have a marshmallow.
Ski is correct that if you read the Declaration of Independence, so where it leads to, this is where it gets really interesting, because a lot of people are saying, oh, I hear people say, oh, burn it all down and start it fresh. We need a new government and all that kind of thing. And I don't, and most of the people don't know what they're saying when I don't think they understand what they're saying. They're looking at the people versus the foundation. If you look at our foundational documents, there's nothing wrong with them.
No.
It's how they're being bastardized and utilized and how they've been bastardized through time. So is it going to be slow going? Yeah, I don't think it's going to be quite a few cycles, either from an election perspective or from a generation perspective. It's going to be at least, look, 2, possibly more generations right now have a tremendous 180 that they have to do. The kids of today, the 5-year-olds, the 6-year-olds, the grandchildren of today, they are being there. That's the entire focus of the attack right now. So that when 10 years from now, they're the 15, 16, 18-year-olds, they have that crop all ready to go.
Well, that to me just makes it more urgent, because I have a niece that's around that age. I don't want to leave that to her, not at all.
True, the dilemma that I see is that as an individual, and I've said that there's only two tools and or weapons, if you will, that we have. One's the one that Spectre was talking about, the banks attacking, so to speak, through the banks being attacked. The other one's the vote. There's nothing else.
Well, I will tell you, I understand what you're saying about the younger generation, but I will tell you this. I have, like I said, I have family that lives in Atlanta, and I not only have one of my family members that I'm super close to. She's 27 years old. And then someone else that one of my other family members is dating, and she's 26, and both of them consider themselves witches. And they don't hang out in the same circles. They actually live in different communities. But like when I went up there a couple months ago, like I was like, holy God, they're both like, oh yeah, we're witches. I was like, holy, I mean, it's like just a thing.
Right.
Everybody is.
No, and yeah, there are those at the older level. I understand, but the purpose. Look, this climate change. I'll use climate change as an example. They're bringing it around. They're talking at the adult level and everything, but where they're indoctrinating like crazy, as at the young kids at the pre-K and early grammar school level, worldwide, and it's purposeful. Because they know that by the time these kids graduate from high school, they're completely indoctrinated. Completely.
Well, to that point, an article just come out on Friday. You can check it out over on Zero Hedge. It was titled, "After Years in the Wilderness, Conservative Christian Education is Being Born Again Post-Pandemic." So over the course of the last 2-3 years, it's been a real eye-opener for folks. It's been the mama bears net fighting against the school boards. It's been the DOJ fighting against them to call them terrorists, this, that, and the other. You name it. But in so doing, all the folks in that, especially those in public schools, and that sat at home, their parents in that, if they had the technology for their kids to get hooked up and learn online through Zoom classes or whatever, saw something that they likely would not have otherwise seen. And many were quite appalled. So there's a lot more folks than you realize that have pulled their kids out of the system, the indoctrination system known as public schools, because of that. And that's a good thing. And that's a trend that's picking up.
100% agree with that, and that's why I also see the not the flip side of that, but the reaction as to why they're going ballistic in pushing the trans and the fascist and communist agenda through the schools and utilizing the ends justifies the means capability, because that's same in many ways. I see it the same way that they're attacking Trump and conservatism in general, is because they're losing grip, and for that they're being more overt. And 100% of what you're saying, and my point of what I was saying earlier was that's why they're so uniquely focused on the children now.
Absolutely. And I guess to your point, Sleep, in regards to how does this plan look on the other side of this when it's all said and done, I guess, let me tell you what we don't want. Let's say this is indeed a continuation of government operation that has been put in place. What we do not want on the other side is military-run government on the other side of that. That's no less than a junta like we've seen in other countries that doesn't usually end too well. Now, if we go based
Can I ask
on,
you a question now?
sure,
When you say military run, now what if the military is not running the country, but the military has to be called in as like a law enforcement
well,
against domestic enemies?
yeah, I mean, if you think of it in that aspect, we're already more or less underneath that because the NDAA and that has come about since 2001. I mean, they had that at the ready, drop hat, turnkey, go as soon as September 11th, 2001 took place. And they've been updating that year after year. Congress continues to pass it without fail. And if you remember right, as part of the NDAA, what did it state that the Americans were? Do you remember?
Refresh our memory.
Okay, so if you go back and read the original one, and I'm sure it's in every one thereafter, they declare that the United States is indeed a battleground. And the people of this country are enemy combatants on the land. So we're already the enemy from the NDAA's standpoint, like it or not, unbeknownst to you or not. That's what's in it. So there's that you have to deal with. But circling back around to what I was trying to get to just a second ago, we don't want the government in control on the other side of this, whatever comes of it. Bad things happen. We've seen it South America, Central America, juntas now that have taken place in those countries. What I do see happening, like I laid out, 10th Amendment is alive and well. I wholeheartedly believe the states are acting within their powers under the 10th Amendment based on the things we're seeing financially, and as they should. If Derek Johnson is to be believed, 1871 is a key year. What was 1871? That's when our Constitution, in effect, became a document that led to our commercialization, if you will, of this country. So, in effect, we're living under the de facto Constitution, as opposed to what our founders intended, which is the de jure Constitution, the organic, the natural law. And so when we get on the other side of this, if we're still under the de facto, we're in trouble. Now, if we come out the other side, and it's not going to be ripped a Band-Aid off, turnkey, ready to go, everything, okay, everybody breathe now, and off you go. No, it's going to take time. We got to reestablish ourselves in terms of what self-governance means and everything that our founders actually intended under the de jure Constitution. And so, yes, it's not going to be something that.
So let me ask you another question. Now, when you say a timeline, you think it's going to be generational? You think it's going to take many
Absolutely.
years? But wait a minute, and I just want to make this point because a lot of people, I mean, this is recent history, right? If we go back and we witnessed what happened with 45's first run, I mean, we've seen the change. We saw the change. It didn't take long for those changes to occur, which is why I believe that I think people are making more of what needs to happen out of what's really going to happen. Because I think that people at that point, after being demoralized and seeing the criminality, and everybody's seeing it, and everybody is awakened to it, I think people are going to be more energized to make this country great again, meaning to have a life, to live as free individuals. I do believe that that is not something that will take a long time, because I I
Yeah,
think it's very easy to eradicate those
I guess
programs that are in place.
I guess I would disagree, and here's why.
I got you.
You think of how long this indoctrination campaign has gone on through our public schools, what we're having to deal with, what's their level of understanding of how government should even work. Dare I say, use somebody like AOC, who can't even determine who the three branches of government are, right? When she first got put in, I don't know that the rest of Millennium, the millennials or Gen Z or whatever, aren't that far behind her, frankly. So there's going to have to be a huge education campaign to reestablish what civics are, understand what the Magna Carta 1215 is, English Bill of Rights 1688, bring things forward historically and say, look, this is why those things took place at the time frames they did. We went through the very same battles. History repeats itself, or maybe if it doesn't repeat itself, it at least rhymes. So you go through those things, bring us up to the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers, to bring up their level of understanding. That's going to take time. You're going to have practitioners across the country to be able to do that stuff. I would venture to say that the people that actually come legitimately across our border with the purest of intentions and go through the legal process probably have a better understanding of what our Constitution is than the kids coming out of our schools today.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
I can second that. Literally.
Yeah, because they got to pass a test if they actually
Absolutely.
show up for their citizenship.
Absolutely.
Like I could tell you that literally. And to that point, just today, I saw in Concord, California, their mascot was the Minutemen, and they removed they dropped using the Minutemen as a mascot because it was oppressive. It was hurting their mojo, if you will, in essence, emotionally, because the depiction of the mascot is he's holding a gun. And then they actually had somebody with a Hispanic accent, a Spanish accent. I don't know, legal or illegal, I don't know, because it was off camera. The person was speaking to the board, and the camera was on the board. But the person was saying that most kids didn't know what the Minutemen were. Therefore, because of that, they removed the Minutemen as the mascot. Now, wait a minute. So instead of teaching them, you lower the bar.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy.
Exactly.
Well,
But
on the flip
crazy.
side of
That's-
that, you have the
but that's the
Washington
point.
Redskins fight to be renamed the Redskins.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point that I believe that Spectre was bringing up. It's an aspect of why it will take many years, generations, is because you have to. That's, again, not to bolster my point. It's the counter, or it's the flip side of the same coin, that for us to undo what they've done, it's the battle of what they're doing. And getting a hold of it. And that's where the schism is being formulated right now through homeschooling, through let's say the Christian revival aspect of the teachings, as Spectre was referring to, the people being taught, or kids being taught, history and actual history, good and bad, rather than just ignoring it altogether and saying, hey, everything was bad.
Right. I know a few Gen Zs and millennials that they're pretty in tune to what's going on today.
Yeah, but I'm
And
not talking about Gen Zs and millennials. We're talking about whatever, I don't even know what label it is. I'm talking about the 5 and 6-year-olds of today.
no, I know. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
my
That's
grandson
why it has
lives
to
here.
happen immediately.
Yeah. Hey,
Well, that's why I say
Let Patriarch. What you say,
no,
Patriarch?
I was going to say, I could speak to that directly. I mean, I've got a 6-year-old grandson that lives with me. And Tien's right. That's a unique situation. I mean, that is the exception, not the rule. But, there are millions and millions of those little kids running around, as Rush Limbaugh used to call them, with their skulls full of mush, being dealt all kinds of craziness by this, the school systems. And you know what? That whole thing in Concord that Tien brought up in Concord High School in California, that it was all started because they wanted to change the mascots from a human depiction to something else, to a non-human. So what's up with that? It sounds like, what's his name, Harari over there, the little WEF guy.
Yeah.
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 Transhumanist or
So
whatever.
many
Yeah.
Rewrite
battles going on.
history. AI will rewrite history and religions. Remember,
Not
that's a
gonna
sick
happen.
individual.
Well, again, like we have such a battle going on, not only in this country and this world. Like they had Satan Con this year, I believe it was in Boston. But I mean, again, you look around and think of the things that are just accepted today that people are just accepting. Well, what are you going to do? Well, we're supposed to be the party that is always about your freedom and stuff, and we freedomed our way right into Satan Con on one hand. But on the other hand, you have people like this wants to come and take your constitutional right away before taking, say firearms away from illegal gun holders that where the laws are already on the books. But I will tell you this. I understand what you're saying about this younger generation, Tien. I promise you. Like I can weigh both sides. I can sit here and tell you to a homesteader's point, like, it's like, my God, there's so many corrupt people. Where do we start? Because we got to start removing them out of these seats and putting in people that actually care about their country and not about their greed. But I've also seen people like, say, Nick Mertz, which is a massive Twitch streamer. He streams video games all day. He usually can amass 30,000 congruent viewers. And he got into a battle back and forth about all he tweeted was like, protect the kids. And Call of Duty dropped him, but his 30,000 and mostly men, mostly young men, stood behind him and started making Call of Groomers trend on Twitter because they went after Call of his supporters went after him. So, and then I watch another there's a pastor I like. He's in Knoxville. That's a whole nother story. But 2 years ago, the channel had 2.4 or 2.7 million subs. Now it's got 127,000 for the people just looking for God. So, like, I see the hope. I do. I hope for the hope. But I also understand, look at the amount of corruption between the teachers and the professors and the CEO and the human rights activists, and the ACLU is now massively corrupt. So we got intelligence agencies being weaponized. We watched what happened in Michigan with the Governor Whitmer kidnapping shit. We've watched what happened in January 6th. On the flip side, can all y'all run for office? Can we get people like you in there? Will you actually run for governor, run for mayor, run for, you know what I mean, your trustee? But to me, it starts there. And I'm so hopeful about the homeschooling that I'm seeing happening, and the kind of the churches coming together and try to start their own little communities in their schools. But I wish that more people like you guys would locally get involved. And I know it's a lot, and golly, practice what you preach and all, but it's because I do to sleep. I think Sleep would agree with me here. There's just so many. It seems like people either corrupt or corruptible or bend over if somebody just threatens their job. Like back to Tennessee's point about, I think, Patrosky brought it up about the masking at the airports. And as well as I do, there's so many people that we know that will go on air and go, nope, not me. I'm not doing it. But if you had to fly and go see your dad for his 75th birthday, are you going to be the asshole? It's nope, I'm staying home because I'm just not doing it. Are you going to put the damn mask on so you go see your dad? I guarantee you're probably going to put the mask on. Does that, and it make you a person? You know what I mean? No, but you do kind of bend a little bit about what you said you wouldn't be willing to do. And that's what I meant by the slowly boiling of the frog. And then I'll shut up and y'all can.
I guess to your point with your Twitch streamer and the audience isn't that to follow him. I mean, can you really blame them at the end of the day? I mean, what's the incentive at this point to work? I mean, you don't have to look too much further than the lyrics of Oliver Anthony's tune that just come out and hit the top of the charts here. to understand the mindset of that generation to say, look, I can go to work, I can sweat, put all my time in, but what do I get out of the deal? There's no incentive. I get paid peanuts and my labor is exploited.
Well, I meant more, I'm bringing up that story as the 30,000 viewers, mostly young men, that would never really get involved with politics otherwise, be exposed to it because their favorite streamer just got ridiculed and dropped because all he did was tweet out about protecting children. And he was protecting children against, like, the trans agenda or whatever. That's what he was kind of responding to. And the thousands of young men that woke up that probably would have never paid attention because they went after Nick Merck. So that's a good thing. You know what I mean? Most of
Yeah,
those
it's a
people do work.
counterculture.
They have day jobs. He's
Well,
the
there's a
millionaire streamer. Sorry, go ahead.
there's like, I mean, there's multi demographics that have been like, I mean, it's just amazing how many people within their own, they have their own demographic. I mean, if you want to call it that, but that's how they're looked at. And that are turned, and like, they're actually coming out and saying there's people that, a rapper that wrote a song like fuck Trump. And now he's like all in on Trump. It's like you can't beat that. Can't beat that. So it is happening out there. People are waking up. But I mean, I just think that we have to be positive, and that's why I said, I mean, nobody's saying that it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in this country. But I think people are willing to get back to work, man. I'm tired of living this insanity. I mean, the economics that we're going through right now, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. People can't afford to buy a home.
Yeah, I guess to your point and what you were saying, vision for a future, how does this play out long term? We already kind of hit upon the educational side of things, but I do believe that there are probably some rip the band-aid off type scenarios that will or could play out. At least I would hope. I've long maintained that end the Fed is one of those, and gold, of course, destroys the Fed, as we all have read and understood for quite a long time. The second side of that is what I've called defund and dismantle all 435. And that kind of plays to what Trump was trying to do by way of Schedule F, and that before he left office, and dismantling the deep state, all the various agencies. And so the only way to do that today is through Congress taking away appropriations, the dollars that feed them. You handicap them and cut them off and dismantle every single one of them. That takes care of the issue that we said in the Declaration of Independence. The very folks in that are giving us grief today are those that are eating out your substance. And that's the folks at all the various agencies, the FDAs, the CDCs, the FBI, the DOJ, on down the line.
I think that's what I mean to, like, Homesteader's point. We got a great system. It's just like, we need to get back to that. One, two, that's what I mean by getting people in these positions that are not greedy and will sell your souls. Come out here and tell you one day they care so much about you. That's why they want to take your Second Amendment rights away, that don't even manage to slaughter the eighth of the amount of people that are dying from fentanyl on the streets every day. They don't give two shits about, because if they actually cared about people, that's the first thing they would go after is the drug crisis. But no, let's open the floodgates to the drug cartel so they can come over here and murder just three San Franciscans every day down on the streets of fentanyl overdose. But we care so much about your lives. Let's take your 9mm.
It's all about the Benjamins.
There's nothing left in San Francisco now. When you have the federal building telling people to stay home, don't come to the office because it's too dangerous. Come on.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I would like to hear you guys' take kind of on that. It almost goes back to the Maui thing. We could circle back all the way back to the very beginning to say, I mean, I understand these people are complete morons. I understand Gavin Newsom is a douchebag that should be running along the sand with Justice Trudeau. Okay, whatever. But I mean, they really are allowing their state to look like a third world country with shit apps. Like, what you can. Okay, all right. You line your coffers, get your shares, go into your deals and buy your stocks. But like allowing every business to flee your state, watching the crime that's happening on the streets and acting like it's not happening. Like something else has got to be going. Because I don't know how dumb you are as a governor or mayor. Like watching the money that could be brought into your city to help make you look like a good mayor or a governor. They're just it's to Sleep's point. I mean, it's horrible. What Boston, Portland, they're called zombie people in Kingston. They're called zombie people at this point. What is
So
going on?
we got a big thing in New York right now where we have immigrants being placed on Randall Island in Manhattan. They're putting them on Staten Island in various locations. They're putting them out in Queens. They're putting them in every freaking borough. They're shipping them up north. How many immigrants are actually here? I mean, every time you
Well,
turn around, there's 1,000 going here, there's 1,000 going there, playing for this, playing for that. And Adams
Well,
is like, he keeps, come on.
there was a recent report in the first part of August. I think it was the first 2 weeks of August, first week of August, maybe 40,000 apprehensions.
well, I don't know if you guys watched that Kennedy interview with Tucker, and I only bring it up because I do get a little concerned, and I've talked to Breaking about this a couple times about how many conservatives kind of flocked to Kennedy, and I'm like, yes, but because of his position on vaccines, and I get that there was a lot of conservatives really mad and upset about what happened, and they love the fact that this man's been against them for a couple, 3 decades. But if you just, I just want people to remind people that he is a Democrat, how he feels about climate change and the border. He doesn't believe in a wall, but he's doing a documentary, and I'm going to play this short little clip just because we brought it up to like just kind of cover what he did with the. Did y'all see this? Where he's doing this documentary at the border, and Kennedy went down there, and it kind of talks about what happens at the border and how quickly these people get a bus ticket and how much they're having to pay the cartel and da 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 da.
I watch every Tucker.
Yeah,
He
I
just
will
he
play just a
recently
little
did
bit of
one with
this.
Vivek too, believe it or
Yeah,
not.
I will play
You know,
just a tiny bit of this.
For people who haven't seen it.
Oh, hold on.
We did 2 weeks to travel from Senegal to Nicaragua. After Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and here. I'm going to New York to join my uncle. My
I'm
dream
going to New York to join my
is to
uncle.
live the dream American.
Your
To live
family's
in
coming over.
America, to work and to help my family.
And I just want to know, this guy's wearing an Armani shirt, this poor refugee.
With the airport in Phoenix, and then out they go to the final destination the same day.
Same day. They come in, fill out something, same day. They're getting on wherever they want to go to their destination.
Here I hope to begin a new life. Yeah, my brother lives here.
His brother lives here.
He's a citizen.
Okay.
Good luck. Goodbye.
And getting on the
Most
bus.
people bring the money or have a sponsor that buys their ticket.
What happens if a family doesn't have the money to buy the plane ticket?
Well, FEMA reimburses us. We can
So FEMA's paying for the bus tickets and plane tickets.
buy the ticket, and
They can't afford it.
So you buy the ticket for
Yeah.
What did you learn from that?
Boy, what I saw was so extraordinary.
And he goes in to talk about how he thought these people would be from Central America or Mexico, whatever. And they're coming from, the Middle East and China and all that. They're having to pay the cartel $10,000 to $15,000 just to cross the river. They watches the bus pull up, drop them off. Now, I will tell you that Peter Santilli, I probably massacred his last name, but he did a really great thing along the border. I believe it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he interviewed a cartel member, and then it was like 3,000 to 5,000 to get across the border, and then I think it was like 11 grand to get to Houston. But now they're saying now it's gone to 10 to 15 in 2 years. Our Biden administration is making the Mexican drug cartel billions of dollars, billions and billions of dollars by not only the human trafficking, the amount they're paying, because that's basically, it might as well be human trafficking. They're charging people to cross our border that we're not. And then the child trafficking, the drug trafficking. I mean, it's like they're here, welcome on in. Here's another way to ruin our country. And I'll hit this and I'll shut up and let y'all have it. The one thing that I come up with that's kind of out there is that I've thought about before is that we're watching our own population be, killed by the thousands every day with drug overdoses. We're watching our younger generation not want to be astronauts or lawyers anymore. They want to be YouTube creators or TikTok stars. So it's almost like I believe that people want to look at it as there's a point of bringing in people that are terrorists to our country through our southern border because we're not really vetting them. There's also another side that I tend to think that we're also bringing in a workforce because our citizens become so damn lazy. We need somebody in here to work in the plants and, blah, 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 blah. Now, go ahead, folks. Come on, homesteader.
It's like I said a
No,
minute
no.
ago.
I mean, I'm telling you that you guys have heard me say this for the longest time, that our and I'll use Nikki Haley. I saw a little clip of her. You know how they were all prepping for the. They were in Iowa, right? And they're all getting ready, and she's coming out and says, "Our number one, kind of similar to what Romney faced in the 2012. Our number one geopolitical foe is China." Our number one issue is no, what did she say? Our number one national security issue is China, and I'm going, no, girl. The number one national security issue is our border. China is an issue, absolutely, to Specter's point, but that's a larger from within. It's the border. Millions have been here. Millions are coming across, and whether they are good or bad, it's affecting the entire, not only social structure but also the economic structure of the U.S.
It's kind of like elective surgery versus absolutely I need it now surgery. I mean, the border is definitely the most immediate problem for sure.
Agree.
Oh, don't think the next time we get together, me and you won't be talking about the medical issue and the, me and you, Patriarchy, we'll go on about that topic.
By the way, Soko, the tavern's going to highlight that video, that documentary Monday.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
What is that?
Take Care of Maya, Maya. It's on Netflix. And it's this poor girl that was diagnosed with a really rare condition. Her mother was like a NIC, I think, or an ICU. She was a specialized nurse. And long story short, she finally got diagnosed by a specialist. They had to take her to an emergency room one night when her stomach was upset. Her mom was at work. The dad took her to the hospital, immediately called DCS, got the child taken from her, the custody taken. 90 days later, the mom still hadn't seen this 11-year-old child. The mother winded up taking her own life in her garage. And I guess they panicked. They allowed the dad to kind of see her again and take her back to another specialist, which diagnosed her with the same thing they said she had in the first place. It's a whole deal. A journalist wrote about it. Families came out of the woodwork. The same DCS worker had done it to all these different families, and it was at a Johns Hopkins University as well. So it was a little Peon hospital.
It was in Florida, down in the Sarasota area. And what hit so hard or hit home for me is I went through almost not the same situation, but a very similar situation. My daughter, who has had significant and genuine serious medical conditions for most of her life, some quack ass doctor accused her of having Munchausen's syndrome, which is basically she was faking her symptoms. She was making it all up.
Yeah.
And that's the basis of this.
That would infuriate me to know.
Oh, you don't even know the half of it. How close I came to punching his lights out right in the hospital.
And that'll be another great topic too, because I'll tell you, we could go on about that one as far as because as a conservative and as a Christian, and I mean, I do have liberal views on some things. My experience with the medical industry, and I know how much dark money is shoved into the war machine. I do believe that there's an argument to be made that every American citizen, we've just sent 113 billion to Ukraine. Let's not forget that.
Yep.
That there is an argument to be made that every American citizen has the right to have as good a health care as if you're living in the projects and if you're Oprah Winfrey living in one of her 7 houses. Yep. The difference in your health care that you can acquire by having the money is astounding. It goes between saving your life and you suffering. And the fact that they It's the same thing in a lot of walks of life where they'll apparently take you more serious if you have a bodyguard standing behind you or an assistant standing to the left than you will if you're somebody that does not have any influence. Is a disgrace, and it's disgusting. And this country in 2023.
Yeah.
And so that's my soapbox about that. I mean, just
Country's broken. We've got a lot of broken
Yeah.
systems.
Well, our medical system and our judicial systems are totally broken. Totally.
yeah. Well, and that's another thing. We'll do the medical thing. Plus, we probably get on a prepper show in here with you guys because I know me and Homesteader too can talk about that. I've stumbled on a mountain guy today who grows all these different herbs that are really good, and like I'm as you know, part of me is Native American, and so like I have I don't know, a desire to learn even more about that than I currently know. The amount of natural plants that grow that can help you that, God forbid, the medical industry doesn't want you to know anything about, but there's a lot of different interesting things we can talk about. I think with this group of people, I know it's getting late. We've been going for a while. You know what I mean?
Three
So,
hours.
Time
I
flies
know.
when you're having fun.
Yeah.
A great
I
company,
love these
though.
conversations. They're
Great
very
company.
interesting. Yeah. So, is there anything else anybody else wants to kind of round it off with before we call it a night?
I was going to say real quick, being you brought up the medical industrial complex and prepping and all that stuff, probably throw in the mix of that censorship industrial complex and what is playing out and actually getting the information out around the channels and that look to thwart our ability to get messages like these out. And that's still a threat and is likely going to come back around even here before 2024 based on what we're seeing. They're not done with trying to censor us yet.
No,
And
no.
we're going to have to find those channels to get the truth out.
X is doing it already.
Well, you wouldn't believe the clips that I have pulled up, but yeah, like you saying that immediately makes me think of that Twitter space that Elon Musk's new CEO had, and how she went off on this tirade about how their AIs and the systems they're going to put in place are going to be more stringent than Twitter's ever seen, or X, whatever you want to call it, and how there is freedom of speech, but the awful things shouldn't be able to be shared, and so you'll be able to quote post awful things, but nobody will be able to basically see them.
Some motto,
That's
freedom of
Twitter's
speech,
new
not
CEO.
reach.
Do what?
I said, what's her motto? Freedom of speech, not reach.
Well, it's just like, it's almost like, does Elon really have to do it? Does Elon really have to remain the CEO of Twitter in order to try and ensure that if there's issues, somebody can try and message him directly? And trust me, I know all the argument pushback where there's still people that's not on Twitter, and there's some weird things that have happened at Twitter. But Twitter, during Elon Musk versus how it was with old Jack, and then his predecessor and Viva Vavavu, whatever her name is better. I mean, he allowed, even going as far as that Johnny Depp lawyer that had been booted off by Jack and them, he even allowed that guy back on it. And Elon can't stand him because if you'll remember about Amber Heard, Elon and Amber Heard was a thing. So, I mean, he has to, from what I can tell, at least putting through the effort to try and make sure that people still have a voice on Twitter, even though I know it's not perfect. But when she did that Twitter space, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So nothing's going to change. We're going to go right on back to Jack Twitter.
Unless it's a trap to catch all the advertisers.
Do what?
A trap to catch all the advertisers.
Did you say advertisers?
Advertisers, yes.
Well,
now they share ad revenue,
Yeah, I see. I didn't pay $44 billion for Twitter, so I understand Elon not wanting to go broke, and wanting to find out a way to make some money. But I thought the whole purpose of him buying the damn thing is because he was frustrated with the freedom of speech. And then after the Twitter files, figuring out that our government was heavily involved with censorship in Twitter, you would think that would bolster his desire to make sure it's quote, Elon's words, the town square. So for him to turn around and be like, and remember that interview he did with, who was it? It wasn't the BBC, it was somebody else. When he said that if it means that I'll have to lose money in order to be able to say the things I want to say, then so be it, I'll lose the money. But then turn around and say, oh, he's going to censor people on Twitter because he needs the money. It's like, which is it? My head's spinning. Which is it? It
Well, I don't know
seems
about
like-
you guys, but I think we ought to make this a regular series. This has been fun.
We have done it before. I love it. I love these conversations, and we did it for several weeks. I'm open for it. I love these hot topics and getting everybody's take on them. So I'm completely open to do it. Like already making a list: medical, mutiny, prepper. There's me and TN. There was a third one I forgot to jot down. Medical, mutiny, prepper, and there was
Censorship.
Yep, that's it. That's what Breaking said. Censorship. Yep. So yeah, we'll do it. We'll put that. I'll put that in the lineup to talk about. As you know, you can always throw any suggestions to me. And with that, we have been going for 3 hours. This was an amazing conversation, and I loved it. I appreciate all of you coming together and doing this. It means a lot. And I guess that's it. Is it anybody got anything else you want to add? You want to shout out anything or whatever?
I just want to say thank you for the invite. I'm just blessed to be in a room with y'all. It's been a great time, and I look forward to doing it again. Definitely. I agree.
Ditto.
I just like to say that I don't like any one of you, and don't call me again.
There he is. That's my boy. I
Perfect.
love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Screw you
man.
guys. I'm going home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Decode that.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
That's hilarious.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, y'all. It was a pleasure.
All right. With that, I'll close this out, and we will do this again. So we will catch y'all later. And bye, everybody.